subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
McGonagall's strong request. The 6 people had to leave the office in disgrace. Harry looked depressed. What should I do? Professor McGonagall doesn't believe what we say. This is normal. After all, we don't have any evidence. Ian could understand Professor McGonagall's thoughts. It would be strange if you just believed it. The person Hagrid met was definitely not a stranger. It was Snape. Harry clenched his fists. A black robe is his symbol. He must have known how to get through Fluffy. Ian's mouth twitched. He really felt wrong for their dean to bear this big black pot. But Dumbledore is not here. Hermione had just finished speaking when a faint voice came from behind. Good afternoon. The 6 people turned around and saw Snape in a black robe standing behind them, his face gloomy and terrible. Professor Snape, good afternoon. Ian pulled a few people and greeted them sleepily. Snape saw Ian. His expression improved for a moment, but then he looked straight at Harry. Harry Potter, it's such a nice day, but you didn't go out for a walk but stayed in the castle instead. You'd better be careful. Snape paused and chose a suitable word. Otherwise, others will think you are tempting our Slytherin students to do bad things. We didn't. Hermione just opened her mouth, and Ian quickly interrupted. Professor Snape, we're going for a walk now, bye. After saying that, Ian turned around and walked away with the 5 people, not daring to stop at all, for fear that the snake field would spit out more liquid. Ian slowly stopped until he was out of Snape's sight. Everyone, we'll go under the trapdoor tonight. Harry said firmly. Tonight? Draco hesitated. You mean tonight the 6 of us will fight against the mysterious man? Or Professor Snape? Ronald didn't indulge Draco at all, and immediately said, Don't forget, Ian was able to hold on for a long time in the hands of the mysterious man, and he didn't fall into a disadvantage. Malfoy, are you afraid? Draco's face flushed instantly. Who said I was afraid? Let's go. Then it's settled. Harry made the final decision. Why are you so late? Ian leaned against the door and looked at the Gryffindor trio who hurried over. Draco couldn't help but complain. If you 3 are any later, the opportunity will be gone. We were discovered by Neville. Harry explained, so we can only knock him down first. Take it down. Ian looked at Harry in confusion. Ronald pointed at Hermione with a strange look in his eyes. Your Hermione petrified Neville completely. Ian was surprised. Huh? Physically knocked him down. You know, although Hermione is sometimes very smart, she is also really scary. Ronald shrugged and complained. Okay, let's go in quickly. Harry interrupted everyone's chatter. If we go too late, the Philosopher's Stone will be stolen. Allaho open. Ian unlocked the door with an unlocking spell and pushed the door open carefully. As soon as the door was opened, several people heard deafening snoring and beautiful music. Looking at Fluffy, who had been knocked down by the automatic harp, Ian's expression suddenly became heavy. It seems that someone has come earlier than us. Then we have to move quickly, Harry said, motioning everyone to remove Fluffy's paw from the trapdoor. With the concerted efforts of 6 people, the big paw of the 3-headed dog was lifted up little by little. Ian opened the trapdoor and looked down. It was dark, and he couldn't see the situation clearly. Harry took a deep breath. I'll go down first. If there is any danger, you turn around and run. Do you understand? Ian never forgets his personality in such a small matter and stopped Harry at that time. At least I can fight that devil back and forth. Ian rolled up his sleeves. I'll go down first, and you will follow. That's it. After saying that, before the others could react, Ian jumped down, not caring about whether there was any danger in the darkness. As soon as he jumped down, he felt that he had landed on something soft and slippery. It was a devil's snare. Ian, several people exclaimed. Come down quickly. I'm fine. Ian's voice came from the darkness with a hint of echo. Hearing Ian's words, Harry no longer hesitated and jumped down second. He's fine. Let's go down quickly. Then came Hermione and Cassandra, and finally Ronald. But unfortunately, Ronald was scared down by the 3-headed dog. When Ronald was ready to jump down, Lue woke up and saw the uninvited guest who had come in at some point and roared. Ronald was so scared that his feet slipped and he fell directly into the cave. "How is it? Is everyone okay?" Ian asked. The voices of several people came from all around, but they were not heavy. Only Ronald, his voice sounded like it was squeezed out from between his lips and teeth. "I said," Ronald swallowed his saliva. You didn't find that the things on your body have been tightening? I feel like I'm suffocating." After hearing what Ronald said, several people realized that the vines that trapped them were constantly tightening, squeezing their breathing space. "This is a devil's snare." Hermione recognized the vines that trapped them. "Don't struggle. The more you struggle, the tighter it will be. Relax. As long as you relax, it will loosen." "Relax? You sound so relaxed." Ronald's voice was a little tearful. "I feel like it's going to wrap me up like a mummy." Hermione was a little speechless. "Please, relax. Just relax." Ian was the first to stop struggling, and slowly, he felt the vines loosening until he fell completely. Hermione and Cassandra also escaped from the devil's snare and fell into Ian's warm embrace. Then it was Harry, but he was not so lucky and fell on his butt. After all, his brother was busy checking the condition of the two little witches. The four people's feet were already on the ground, and only Draco and Ronald were still howling on the devil's snare. There was an unpleasant scream in his ears, and Ian pulled out his wand with an indifferent face and pointed it at it. Fluorescent flash. A strong white light shot out from the tip of the wand. When the devil's snare met this strong light, it was like a mouse seeing a cat, and it was frightened and frantically loosened the vines. In less than 5 seconds, Draco and Ronald fell down and fell to the ground. "Ouch! It hurts! It hurts so much! This damn thing!" Cassandra hugged her arms and looked down at the two people lying on the ground. "You too. Don't you pay attention in class? We even touched the devil's snare in the herbology class, and you too." Hermione shook her head, looking disappointed. Ian kicked the two people twice. "Hurry up. We have to keep going." The 6 people continued to walk forward, passed through the only corridor, and came to the second checkpoint. Chapter 68. Key and Wizard Chess. "Listen, what's that sound?" Cassandra, who had the sharpest ears, was the first to hear the strange sound. Several people shut their mouths and listened carefully to the sound in the air. "It seems to be the sound of wings flapping," Hermione said uncertainly. "Just walk forward and you'll know," Ian said, opening the door first and coming to the second room. There were countless birds flying in the sky in the room. Looking carefully, those birds that made the sound of wings fluttering were keys. You can only move forward, not backward. Ian looked at the passage behind him, and then at the door opposite. Ronald just lost face in the devil's net, and now he wants to show off in front of his friends. He walked to the door, pulled out his wand, and aimed at the lock. Allaho open. Unfortunately, not everyone is Ian Potter, and the door didn't react at all. Ronald looked at the ground awkwardly. "I just want to try." This door has been cast with multiple layers of protection spells, and the unlocking spell, 187, is useless. Ian walked around the door and came to a conclusion. "So, what do we get through?" Draco looked at the group of keys flying in the air and swallowed. Ian folded his arms across his chest, leaned against the wall, and tapped the ground with his right toe in a regular pattern. "The key that can open this door will fly over." Ian used the flying spell on the densely packed keys, but it was completely useless. Not to mention the real key. No key flew into Ian's hand at all. The flying spell is useless. Ian put down his wand, pointed to 2 brooms not far away, and said, "It seems that we can only fly up to find it. So, we need to find the right one among these keys and insert it into the keyhole." Harry said, "That's right." Ian nodded. "This is the task of the second level. So many keys. At least 1,000. How long will it take to find them?" Ronald looked up at the flying keys in the sky and said in despair, "This door is so old, and there is rust on the lock, so the key must be an old-fashioned one, old and rusty." Cassandra walked to the door and carefully observed the position of the lock. "Look, there, the one flying up." Harry pointed to the top of the room and said loudly, "I saw it." Hermione frowned. "You have to fly up to get it, which is not an easy task." For a moment, the eyes of the 5 people were on Ian. Ian helplessly held his forehead. "Why are you looking at me? I'm not a seeker, Harry, Draco. You two each have one. Go up and find it." He didn't expect that after the Gryffindor trio became the troublemaking 6, this level would be humanized, and there would be an extra broom. TSK, old Dumbledore is quite meticulous. After hearing Ian's words, Harry and Draco hesitated and didn't act immediately. "What are you two worried about?" Ronald patted their shoulders. "Don't worry. Snape is so old and blurry. He can catch the key. So you two, the youngest seekers in 100 years, will have no problem." Snape, God strikes without a trace. Hanging upside down, Harry and Draco looked at each other, nodded, and each rode on their brooms. As soon as the two rode on their brooms, the group of keys rushed towards them like crazy. Harry and Draco kept dodging the attacks of the group of keys and flew upwards. "See," Harry shouted, "it's there." Draco also saw the key. "I saw it too. It flew too fast." The two rode on their brooms and kept chasing the key in the air. Draco was responsible for driving away the keys around Harry, because he provided an environment that was convenient for catching the secret key. Soon, Harry caught the key, and he threw it down with all his strength. "Ian, go for it." Ian jumped up, caught the key, and quickly ran over to open the door. "Hurry, Ian, hurry." Ronald stared at Harry and Draco, who were still in the air nervously, fearing that the group of keys would shoot at them. Ian inserted the key into the keyhole, and the door slowly opened. He shouted to the air, "Harry, Draco, hurry." As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled the 2 little witches and kicked Ronald by the way and entered the safe area. Harry and Draco also followed with a dive and flew into the door. Ian seized the opportunity and closed the door at the moment when the two flew in. There was a crash behind the door. "It's terrible." Draco looked at the pile of keys inserted in the door and said with lingering fear. Harry also panted and nodded. "Are you okay?" Hermione asked with concern. "It's okay." Harry and Draco shook their heads at the same time. Ian looked at the dark passage ahead and said, "Don't be in a hurry to rest. Let's go quickly. Who knows what the next level is?" The 6 people walked forward along the passage, turned a corner, and came to the 3rd room. The dark environment made Cassandra very uncomfortable. She held Ian's hand tightly and wrinkled her nose. "I don't like this environment at all. Is this a cemetery?" Hermione looked at the stone statues around her and said with some doubt, "No, this is a big chessboard." Ronald said firmly. As soon as Ronald finished speaking, the lights around him lit up, allowing the 6 little wizards to see the environment clearly. "The door is there, let's go." Harry pointed to the door blocked by the chess pieces and was about to walk over. Ian stood there, looking at Harry leisurely as soon as he approached the chess pieces. Those chess pieces that looked like soldiers drew out their double blades and took attacking postures. "Have you lost your mind in the 2nd level?" Ian couldn't help but give Harry a slap on the head. "Do you think we can get through so easily? Then how we get through?" Draco looked at the chessboard in front of him and thought of the door full of keys. "I don't want to go back to grab the keys again." "Oh, I think we need to go through this game to get to the door." Ronald swallowed and said. Ian crossed his arms and said, "This level depends on you. I know nothing about chess." Ronald's IQ was rarely online. He quickly analyzed the rules. "We need to become chess pieces and complete the chess game on their behalf. As long as we get to the end, we can get to the door." "Harry, you stand on the opposite grid." Ian. Ronald arranged for several people to represent a chess piece, and he himself got on the horse and became a knight. Now, Ronald looked at the white side on the opposite side. "The war has begun." Draco looked at Ronald with a pale face. We're not playing real chess, are we?" Ronald said nothing, but controlled a pawn to the opposite side. "Pawn, go to d5. Under Ronald's command, the pawn moved to the position of d5, just opposite the white pawn that had just moved. The white pawn immediately drew out its double blades and slashed at the pawn that landed on d5. In an instant, the attacked pawn was torn into pieces and fell to the ground, stirring up a puff of dust. "Draco, I think you're right." 0.2. Ronald swallowed and tried to calm himself down. This is playing real wizard chess. The five people's eyes were all on Ronald, and their expressions became solemn. On the chessboard, there is winning or losing. Under Ronald's command, several pawns began to move one after another. Bishop, go to c3. Rook, go to e4. Pawn, go to b5. The chessboard seemed to have become a real battlefield. Every move was full of danger, no matter whether it was the white side or the black side. As long as they stood on the opposite side, the chess pieces would draw their weapons without hesitation and go to the opposite side. At this time, Ronald looked very different from usual. He was observing the chessboard attentively, like a general commanding a war. Under Ronald's command, many white and black chess pieces fell down, and the battle entered a white-hot stage. The chess pieces of both sides were getting fewer and fewer, and the debris was getting more and more. Finally, after the white king killed a black chess piece, the field suddenly became quiet. Chapter 69. The Knockdown Giant Monster and 7 bottles of magic potion. No, wait. Harry finally understood as he watched the chess piece fall. Harry, it seems you understand. As long as I make the next move, the queen will eat me, and then you can checkmate the opponent's king. Ronald looked at Harry solemnly. Ronald, no, this won't work. I understand what you mean. Draco also understood and shouted immediately. I know Harry's chess piece can't be moved, but my pawn can. Ronald, don't be impulsive. Wait, what are you talking about? Hermione didn't understand the conversation between the 3 people at all. Harry took a deep breath. His eyes reddened. Ronald is going to sacrifice himself. There must be another way. Hermione said anxiously. We can definitely find another way. Ronald. For a while, several people were trying to persuade Ronald to think of other ways, and Ian followed suit. Do you still want to stop Snape from stealing the Philosopher's Stone? Ronald took a deep breath. This is the only way. Don't stop me anymore. Harry, this is the calendar of the factory. Ronald smiled with relief. Harry, Ian, I know very well that you two should keep moving forward. Not me, not Draco, not Hermione and Cassandra, but you two brothers. Ronald looked at Harry and Ian, his voice firm. You have to face that person, so you must not fall down now. Harry was silent, his eyes reddened, staring at Ronald, unable to say a word. Only by moving forward can you go further. Ian looked at Ronald sitting on the horse calmly. Ronald, don't worry and finish this game of wizard chess that belongs to you. You'll be fine. Ronald smiled and said nothing, just said, Of course, Ian, I believe you. After that, Ronald rode his horse and walked towards the chessboard. His expression was very decisive. Knight, go to h3. As soon as Ronald finished speaking, the horse under him neighed to the sky and rushed to the position of h3. The White Queen slowly approached Ronald's knight, raised her long, heavy sword high, and stabbed it into the stone horse under Ronald. The knight was killed by the queen and shattered into stones on the ground, and Ronald also fainted among the stones. Ronald! Several people looked at Ronald lying on the ground worriedly. Don't move. The game is not over yet. Ian stopped them and turned to look at Harry. Harry, it's your turn. Harry nodded, walked firmly to the White King, and sentenced him to death. Checkmate. The White King took off the crown on his head and threw it at Harry's feet, loosened the sword in his hand, and fell to the ground. They won. The white chess pieces bowed and retreated, making way for the door. Several people immediately ran to Ronald to check on his condition. He's fine, just fainted. Ian checked Ronald and took out a bottle of recovery potion for him to drink. Ronald soon woke up slowly under the effect of the potion and opened his eyes. I'm okay. I brought the potion. Facing the surprised eyes of the 5 people, Ian shrugged. It's better to be prepared. Cassandra stood up and patted the dust on her body. Let's go to the next level. Draco, Harry, you hold Ronald. Ian gave a few instructions and walked in front. Let's go quickly. The 5 people followed Ian and trotted across the chessboard. What else can come next? Draco looked ahead, his face gray and black. This is already the 3rd level. We have passed Professor Sprout's mechanism. That devil's snare, Ian said as he walked. It must be Professor Flitwick who cast the magic on those keys, and Professor McGonagall was the 3rd level, deforming the chess pieces and making them alive. Then there's only Professor Quirrell's magic and Snape's. Cassandra stopped halfway through her words. Ian naturally took over Cassandra's unfinished words. And Professor Snape set up, I guess it's a potion. The 6 people walked down and pushed open the next door. As soon as they entered, a disgusting stench hit their noses, and they had to lift up their clothes to cover their noses. Seeing this, Ian quickly cast a sense-destroying spell on several people. Temporary loss of smell. The sense of smell of several people disappeared, and they could no longer smell the stench, which made them feel much better. They put down their hands and saw the scene in front of them, clearly a troll. This troll was bigger than the one knocked down by Ian on Christmas. It lay motionless on the cold floor, unconscious, with a bloody lump on its head. Ian waved his wand and curled his lips slightly. It seems that I don't have to duel with the troll this time. Hermione patted her frivolous boyfriend. Hurry up and go to the next level. It's better if you don't have to deal with the troll. The 6 people passed through the troll room, came to the next door, and pushed it open. What came into view was a table with 7 bottles of different shapes on it. It looks like the last level. Ian pointed to the 7 bottles of potion, Snape's level. As soon as the 6 people crossed the threshold, a flame suddenly rose behind them, blocking the way back. This flame was unusual. It was purple. At the same time, the door leading to the front also had black flames. Ian and 500 others were trapped in the middle. There is a hint. Hermione grabbed the parchment next to the bottle and read the words on it aloud. Danger is in front of you. Safety is behind you. 2 of us can help you. Drink them. 1 will lead you forward, and the other will send you back to where you came from. 2 of them contain nettle wine, and 3 contain assassins waiting in line. Choose, unless you want to stay here forever. We also provide 4 clues to help you choose. First, no matter how cunningly the poison hides, they are actually standing to the left of the nettle wine. Second, the contents of the bottles on the left and right are different. If you want to move forward, they will not be useful to you. Third, you will find that the bottles are of different sizes. There is no death hidden in giants and dwarfs. Fourth, the second on the left and the second on the right, although they look different, taste the same. After reading the 4, Hermione breathed a sigh of relief. I have to say, this is too clever. Hermione's eyes were shining. This is not magic. This is logical reasoning, a riddle. Ian stared at the 4 bottles with interest. Only the Half-Blood Prince Snape could come up with such a puzzle. If it were another pure-blood wizard, it would be impossible to come up with such a brain teaser. Chapter 70. The end of the level, Kill Quirrell. Many of the greatest wizards have no ability to reason logically, so they're trapped here forever. Cassandra stood beside Hermione and read the last sentence of the parchment. What about us? Can't we get out either? Harry frowned and asked. Of course not. The 2 little witches said at the same time. Everything we need to know is written on this paper. Hermione pointed to the parchment, 7 bottles. 3 are poison, 2 are wine. 1 can allow us to safely pass through the black flame, and the other can allow us to return through the purple flame. Ronald scratched his hair. But how do we know which one is which? Give me a minute. Hermione said. She read the parchment and muttered. No matter how cunningly the poison hides, it actually stands to the left of the nettle wine. She picked up a bottle on the right. This is definitely not wine, and it can't be poison if it passes through the black flame. So it can't be it. Hermione began to pace back and forth, muttering something as she walked. Neither the largest bottle nor the smallest bottle, the second on the left and the second on the right, taste the same. Cassandra also picked up the smallest bottle thoughtfully. I know. Hermione and Cassandra shouted at the same time. The 2 smiled at each other and picked up the bottles they identified. This, Hermione picked up the 3rd bottle on the left. This can pass through the black flame. Let us move on and get the Philosopher's Stone. And this one can pass through the purple flame and take us away from here. Cassandra picked up the 1st bottle on the right. Are you sure? Ronald asked hesitantly. Of course, the 2 little witches said in unison again. Ian took the 2 bottles of potion and stuffed the one that could leave into Hermione's hand. He grabbed Cassandra's hand and overlapped it with Hermione's hand. Hermione, Cassandra, take Ronald and Draco. You leave first Harry and I will find you as soon as we get the Philosopher's Stone." Ian looked at the two little witches with a serious expression. Hermione shook her head stubbornly and was about to say something when she was interrupted by Ian. "Be obedient. If you are here, I have to distract myself to protect you." Cassandra let go of Ian's hand and looked at him straight. "We came together, and we have to go together." "Yeah." Hermione rarely choked Cassandra. "Let's go together. No matter which of you two, you will not be Voldemort's opponent." Ian has always been gentle to pretty little witches, and if you two are here, my mind will be diverted for the most part. Listen to me. There are 2 brooms in the flying key room. Draco is very good at Quidditch. He can take Ronald, who is not in good condition, Cassandra, you, and Hermione together. Ian took a deep breath and looked at the 2 little witches steadily. They will carry you through the trapdoor, pass by Fluffy, go directly to the owl shed, find Themis and Hedwig, and send a letter to Professor Dumbledore. We need him to rescue. Believe me, whether it is Voldemort or someone else inside, I can temporarily contain them. Harry also pointed to the lightning scar on his forehead and said, "That's right. Don't worry. I escaped once by luck, and Ian was not at a disadvantage in Voldemort's hands. We can turn danger into safety." Hermione wanted to say something else, but was pulled by Cassandra. "Let's go," Cassandra said briefly, pulling Hermione towards the purple flames. Ronald and Draco followed quickly, and the 4 drank the potion in Cassandra's hand, and their figures disappeared in the black flames in an instant. Ian watched the purple flames gradually extinguish and retracted his gaze. "Voldemort, Cub, your father is here. Let's go, Harry." Ian picked up the potion that could pass through the black flames and drank it in one breath. He felt a chill on his warm stomach. Passing through the black flames, they fell to the ground unscathed. The 2 successfully came to the last room, and there was a huge mirror in the middle. It was the mirror of Ariste. In front of the mirror stood a man, not Snape, nor Voldemort, but Quirrell with a huge purple turban. "Professor Quirrell?" Harry looked at the man in front of him in shock. "No, this is impossible. Snape should be." He could never have imagined that the man behind the scenes was Quirrell, not Snape, as he had always believed. "Yes, Snape does look like a bad guy." Quirrell sneered. His voice was no longer stuttering like before, but became cold and hoarse. "So, with him around, who would doubt, but poor Professor Lowe? But that day during the Quidditch match, Snape wanted to kill me." Harry still couldn't figure it out. He subconsciously looked at Ian beside him. Ian shook his head slightly at him. "You're wrong, kid. I wanted to kill you." "Crazy broom troll Quidditch, it was all me." Quirrell grinned. "Believe me, if Snape's robe hadn't suddenly caught fire and blocked my view, you would have lost your life long ago. No matter how much he chanted the counter curse, it was useless." "Did Snape save me?" The spell he chanted was a counter curse. Harry muttered to himself. Ian shrugged. "I told you, Professor Snape is not a bad guy. You don't believe me at all. Snape had already noticed me on Halloween. I let the troll in, but Snape didn't fall for it." Quirrell looked at Ian and the others viciously. Everyone else was busy in the basement, but he actually ran directly to the 4th floor to stop me. "It's all because of him that my plan failed." After that day, he no longer trusted me. He didn't let me stay alone, but I have never been alone. Not alone. Quirrell turned around and stared at the mirror. "As long as there is the Philosopher's Stone, Lord Voldemort will be able to make a comeback. At that time, all those who disobey him will die." The moment Quirrell turned around, Harry felt the lightning scar hurt. Ian dragged Harry behind him. He clenched his wand tightly, staring at Key-Lou's movements without blinking. Quirrell's tone gradually became excited. "What is this mirror used for? Why did Dumbledore put it here? I saw my desire in it. I have a Philosopher's Stone, but how can I get it?" "Use those 2 boys. Use them." A weak, hoarse voice like a snake came from behind Quirrell's head. Quirrell turned around with a ferocious expression and looked at Ian and the others. "You, come here. Come quickly. I'm going to FGNI." Ian didn't waste any words, and a petrification spell went towards Quirrell. Petrification! Quirrell dodged Ian's spell and was about to attack the 2, but was interrupted by the voice behind him. "Don't use spells, catch the boy." Quirrell heard this and immediately gave up the spell and rushed towards Harry. Ian's expression was solemn. He pushed Harry away and rushed towards Quirrell. Smashed to pieces, a spell sprayed out from the tip of Ian's wand, hitting Quirrell directly. Armor protects. Quirrell was just defending, but did not actively attack Ian. Harry pulled Ian and turned to run, but was blocked by a circle of fire summoned by Quirrell with a snap of his fingers. Ian said, "Tisk, this pirated fire. Want to learn from Grindelwald?" "Okay, stop. Let me talk to them. Let me do it." Quirrell hesitated, "But, Master, your condition is not very good. I still have this little strength. Let me do it." Quirrell began to slowly untie his turban. Revealing his head, it was 10 twisted human faces. The moment Harry saw this face, the scar on his forehead suddenly hurt like fire. "Voldemort, you have become a parasite." Ian looked at the face with a serious expression. Voldemort smiled sinisterly. "The blood of the unicorn can prolong my life, but it cannot give me a body. However, there is another thing that can fulfill my wish. Ian Potter, you are a student of Slytherin." Voldemort called out Ian's name in a hoarse voice. "You performed very well in the Forbidden Forest, and you are extremely talented, just like me in the past. Believe me, as long as we cooperate, the whole world will surrender to us." Ian snorted coldly. "You are not afraid of slipping your tongue when you say this. You are just a remnant soul now. Trash." Harry also clenched the wand in his hand and stared at Voldemort coldly. "It's you. It's you who killed our parents. Now you even want to seduce my brother. Harry Potter, don't you want to see your parents? Help me get the Philosopher's Stone. I can revive them." Voldemort showed a weird smile on his face. "What a touching reunion scene. Don't you want to see them?" As Voldemort bewitched, 2 figures emerged in the mirror. They were Tom and Lily. "Harry, don't believe him." Ian pulled Harry behind him. "He can't revive the dead at all. The people in the mirror are not my parents, but your desire." Harry also reacted. "Yes, Ian said that the dead cannot be resurrected, and the professor also said that the dead will not appear in the world in any form other than ghosts." Voldemort's expression suddenly darkened. "Potter, 2 damn Potters. Damn them, just like your parents. Shattered into pieces. Shattered to pieces. Fainted. Flaming. Eliminate your weapons." Ian threw out several spells in a row, pulling Harry out. "Harry, run." Voldemort was forced back several steps by Ian's spell, and he roared, "Quirrell, catch them. Don't let them run away." Quirrell heard this and immediately chased after Ian and the others. Ian and Harry dodged left and right in the room, trying to find a breakthrough, but the flames were too fierce and they couldn't find a way out at all. What a powerful strength. What a wonderful magic. Abandon your brother. We can create a greater world. Voldemort, damn it. Ian gritted his teeth and used a spell he created, Strangle, Avada Kedavra. Just like the Forbidden Forest that night, 2 spells of different colors collided with each other, forming convection. Harry also took this opportunity to throw a spell at Voldemort frantically. Expelliarmus. All petrified. Voldemort had eaten a few years more than Ian and Harry. He waved his hand and flipped Harry to the ground, and then increased the output of magic to Ian. Ian really couldn't hold on any longer, rolled to the side, and spit out a mouthful of blood. "Ian!" Harry screamed, and immediately struggled to crawl to Ian's side and help him up. "I'm fine, Harry." Ian spat out and wiped the corner of his mouth, staring at Voldemort, who was getting closer and closer to them. Voldemort walked towards the brothers with a grim smile, stretched out his hand to Harry, and lifted him up. "Harry, hit him with your hand. Hit him in the face." Ian shouted at Harry. At the critical moment of life and death, although Harry didn't understand, out of trust in Ian, he raised his hand without thinking and slapped Voldemort in the face. No, Pa. 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 A few crisp and loud slaps sounded, and Voldemort was slapped in the face by Harry several times, and the whole person was stunned. As a wizard, he never thought that someone would fight him in close combat and use physical attacks. Before Voldemort could react, the place where he was touched by Harry began to heat up, as if burned by a raging fire, with a sizzling sound, bursts of green smoke, and turned charred in an instant. "Ah!" Voldemort screamed, and immediately let go Harry, curled up on the ground and rolled around madly. It was unclear whether the heart-wrenching scream belonged to Voldemort or Quirrell. Harry also fell to the ground, and he looked at his hands in confusion. I hit him. Don't talk nonsense. Keep hitting him. Ian got up from the ground, stepped on Voldemort's back, grabbed his arm, and tried desperately to pull him off the back of Quirrell's head. Harry, don't let him run away. Harry came to his senses and immediately stepped forward to help. The moment Harry touched Quirrell's body, the eyes and servants changed again. After struggling for a while, Quirrell's body turned into black ash and scattered all over the ground, leaving only a robe. He's dead. Voldemort is dead. Ian, we have avenged our parents, Harry said and began to cry. Dead. Ian didn't let down his guard at all. He remembered that in the original plot, there should be a person hidden in the running clothes. Where is Voldemort's remnant? Sure enough, the next second, the black mist formed by Voldemort's remnant soul emerged from his robe, rushed towards Ian and the others, and fled in panic. At the moment when Voldemort knocked him down, Ian had only one thought in his mind. Damn it, Voldemort, you were playing tricks on me. Chapter 71, Blood Protection. Spell. Ian woke up again, and the first thing he saw was the familiar pure white ceiling. Ian Potter, was an old customer of the hospital wing. Ian. Huh? Ian looked at the bed next to him and saw his useless cheap brother. He immediately showed a concerned expression. Harry, are you okay? Harry had a bandage on his hand, and his face was a little pale. I'm fine, Ian. Is Voldemort not dead? He escaped. Ian sat up and leaned against the pillow, but we hurt him badly. You shouldn't be able to do evil in a short time. Harry was a little disappointed when he heard it. So, we still can't avenge our parents. Harry, sooner or later there will be a chance. Ian patted Harry's shoulder and motioned him to look at the pile of gifts surrounding the two beds. Look, many people gave us gifts. Harry was immediately attracted by the colorful gifts. He curiously opened the gifts, and even the sadness on his face was dispersed a lot. This is from Hermione, Cassandra, Draco, and Ronald. While unpacking, Harry suddenly laughed. In addition to Slytherin, people from the other two colleges also gave me gifts. Hey, when did I have so many friends? Harry was a little confused. I have friends from all 4 colleges. Ian raised his eyebrows and opened a few comforting letters written by the Little Witch, but the Little Witch gave more. Ian, you are really popular. Harry looked at the fragrant letters in Ian's hand with some envy. Ian smiled non-committally and opened the next gift, which was from Miss Isabella Swan. A handmade chocolate. Harry came over immediately. Ian, are you familiar with Miss Swan? The boys in Gryffindor are discussing who is prettier between her and Hermione. I'm not very familiar with her either. Isabella is Hermione's roommate. Ian took a bite of the chocolate, but it is likely that we will be very familiar with each other in the future. It has to be ripe. Isabella Swan is a nice name, but Isabella Potter is better. I wonder if the wizarding world is monogamous. Ian bit the chocolate while thinking about the marriage law of the wizarding world and imagining the future. Ian, I have chocolate too, Harry suddenly exclaimed. It was given by the younger sister of the Patil sisters. Wow, there's also a big bag of candy. It seems that you two brothers have gained a lot. A gentle voice suddenly sounded. Ian turned his head and saw that it was Dumbledore. Professor Dumbledore. Ian shouted obediently. This old bee, he saw a piece of crimson clothes before he fainted, and the bag belonged to this old man. He was sure that Dumbledore must have used the disillusionment charm to stare at them at that time, probably because he was afraid that the training was not done well and really killed them. Good afternoon, children. Dumbledore walked slowly to the beds of the two. So many gifts. It seems that they're all sent by your friends and admirers. Admirers? Harry scratched his hair shyly. I have admirers? Although it is a secret, what happened between you two brothers and Professor Quirrell in the classroom on the 4th floor has spread like wildfire, Dumbledore said with a smile, so the whole school naturally knows about it. Ian shook his head helplessly. I guess it must be Draco and Ronald who are the big mouths who spread it everywhere. I think you were right. Harry nodded in agreement. Professor Dumbledore, are Hermione and the others okay? Ian suddenly remembered something and asked hurriedly. They're all fine. Miss Granger and Miss Wally are both very smart little witches. Dumbledore smiled. They have been asking about your situation and told me that they hope you can notify them as soon as you wake up. That's good. Ian was relieved when he heard it. Harry also smiled. It's good that they are okay. You also have two friends, Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy, who care about you two very much. Dumbledore looked at Harry and said in a gentle tone, Friends will make our lives more meaningful, right? Ian and Harry both nodded in agreement. Professor, how is the Philosopher's Stone? Harry asked. We only defeated Voldemort, but we did not find the Philosopher's Stone. Don't be nervous, kids, the Philosopher's Stone is good. Dumbledore picked up a chocolate frog. Remember what I said? Professor Dumbledore, you are too kind. Ian rubbed his nose guiltily. To be honest, he really wanted the Philosopher's Stone, not for immortality, but to turn stone into gold. Luckily, before Voldemort used them to take the Philosopher's Stone, he took action first. Otherwise, he would not be able to get the Philosopher's Stone from the mirror. The Philosopher's Stone is completely safe because it has been destroyed. Destroyed? Ian and Harry shouted in unison. Ian immediately stood up, his tone somewhat anxious. Professor Dumbledore, that is the last Philosopher's Stone in the world. If it is destroyed, wouldn't Nico Flamel die? Why destroy it? You don't know how to cherish it at all. Nico Flamel doesn't need it. You can get it to him. My friend Nico and I discussed it, and we both think that it is the safest way to do it. Dumbledore sat down beside Ian's bed, staring at the little wizard with wise blue eyes. He will die, but he has enough elixir to keep him alive until he finishes his own business. I know that this seems incredible to young people like you, but for Nico and Perenelle, death is actually like going to bed after a long day. Moreover, to those who are very clear-headed, death is nothing but a great adventure. Ian still felt a little sorry. Professor, that is the only remaining Philosopher's Stone in the world. It is really a waste of resources. Dumbledore shook his head. Ian, you know, the Philosopher's Stone is not such a wonderful thing. With it, no matter how much wealth you want to have or how long you want to live, you can get what you want. Isn't that good, Professor? Harry asked doubtfully. No. Children, these two things are what humans want most. But the problem is that humans just like to choose things that are least beneficial to them. Dumbledore sighed. My explanation may not make you really understand the truth, but I hope you remember that for those who are very clear-headed, death is nothing but the first great adventure. Ian and Harry both fell into deep thought. Dumbledore looked at the two little wizards and hummed a little song with a smile. Professor, although the Philosopher's Stone is gone, will Voldemort come back? Harry asked solemnly. Ian chuckled. Professor Dumbledore, Voldemort will definitely find other ways to make a comeback, right? Yes, children. Dumbledore's expression also became serious. He didn't disappear. He is still hiding somewhere, maybe looking for a body willing to share with him. He is not really alive, so he can't be killed. He was only concerned about slipping away at the time and didn't care about Quirrell's life or death. He was ruthless to his enemies and his followers. Ian nodded. He had to learn from the lesson of this Dark Lord. He had to be ruthless to his enemies, but he had to be gentle to his followers. Professor Dumbledore, I have a few more questions. Harry raised his hand. Can you give me an answer? I want to know the truth. The truth is a beautiful and terrible thing, which needs to be treated with extreme caution. Dumbledore sighed. However, I will try my best to answer your questions, unless I have a good reason to keep my mouth shut. In that case, I hope you can forgive me. Of course, I can't lie to you. Harry raised his head with a serious expression. Professor Dumbledore, Voldemort killed our parents back then, but he wanted to kill Ian and me from the beginning. Until today, he still wants to kill us. Why? Professor Dumbledore, I haven't found the truth of this matter from anyone or in relevant materials. Ian also looked at Dumbledore, frowning slightly. We don't understand what Voldemort's purpose is. I can't tell you about this for the time being. Dumbledore sighed heavily. When you grow up a little, you will know, okay? Ian and Harry looked at each other and could only nod helplessly. Professor, second question. Harry took a deep breath. Why can't Quirrell touch me? Ian asked me to attack Quirrell with my hands, and he turned into a pile of black ash. When Dumbledore heard this question, his sharp eyes suddenly looked at Ian, but he quickly concealed it. Ian looked at Dumbledore's eyes, secretly complained in his heart, and his face was as calm as before. Dumbledore retracted his gaze and explained Harry's question. Harry, your mother died to save you. If there is something Voldemort doesn't understand, it is love. He didn't realize that the deep love that Lily has for you will leave its mark on you. It is an ancient spell, not a scar, not a visible mark. Dumbledore's tone became heavy. Being loved so deeply by someone, even if the person who loves us is dead, will leave us an eternal amulet, is hidden in your skin. Harry subconsciously touched the lightning scar and sobbed softly. So, that's the reason. Harry, it's for this reason that Quirrell, or Voldemort, can't touch you. Quirrell's heart is full of hatred, greed, and ambition. He sold his soul to Voldemort and became Voldemort's body. Dumbledore gave the sad little wizard enough respect and looked out the window. When he touches you, the love spell will show its power. Voldemort will not be able to bear such great pain, and John Lu will die. So, there's a powerful ancient magic flowing in Ian and Ian's body. Harry wiped his tears. Is it my mother who is still protecting us? Yes, Harry, that's love. Dumbledore looked at Harry with a smile. Your mother saved you and Ian with love. Ian tried to dispel Dumbledore's suspicion just now, also pretended to be sad and lowered his head. I know. What? On the day I returned to the old house, I saw it in the ancient magic parchment scroll collected by my family. Ian's eyes were red all of a sudden. The blood protection spell used by my mother is an ancient magic, a sacrificial magic in the name of love, and it is the most powerful defense. Harry and I both have blood protection spells, so I know that Voldemort can't touch us, and we are absolutely safe under the protection of my mother's love. Dumbledore listened to Ian's reasonable explanation, and his expression became a little more loving. I have always believed that love is the greatest magic. Ian looked at Dumbledore's reaction and felt relieved. It was a close call, and he was fooled. Fortunately, he returned to the old house at that time. Sure enough, no matter where you are or what position you are in, you must remember one sentence. You can't go wrong with caution. The third question, Professor, do you know who gave me the invisibility cloak? Harry sniffed, and his originally hoarse voice returned to normal. Ian also took out the alchemical necklace from his neck and asked curiously, and this necklace of mine, Professor, thanks to it, I have avoided many of Voldemort's spells. That invisibility cloak. Dumbledore's expression suddenly became nostalgic. This is what your father gave me. He told me that if anything happened to him, this cloak would be given to you, Harry. As for Ian's alchemical necklace, this is what your father asked me to do. Dumbledore reached out and touched it. He told me that the Potter family's invisibility cloak is only given to the eldest son of each generation. He felt that he owed you a lot, so he asked me and Nico to make this necklace together. Ian held the necklace in silence, which gave Dumbledore the feeling that Ian was very touched. But in fact, Ian was just thinking about whether he could let the system cope a few out. He could give Hermione and Cassandra and Isabella, one for each person. Chapter 72, The Reason Why Snape is so hypocritical. There's one last thing, Professor. Dumbledore looked at the little wizard lovingly. Go ahead, kids. Snape, why does Professor Snape protect me when he obviously hates me? Harry frowned slightly. I don't understand, Professor, why. Back then, James and Severus did dislike each other and fought back and forth. Dumbledore sighed softly. But later, James did something that Snape could never forgive him for. What was it? James saved Severus' life. Dumbledore's tone was long. Human emotions are really interesting, aren't they? Harry and Ian looked at each other, and both saw confusion in each other's eyes. Professor Snape couldn't stand owing your father James a favor like this. The reason why he tried every means to protect you this year was because he felt that this would make him and your father even, and no one owed anyone anything. Then he can feel at ease to relive his hatred for your father. At this point, Dumbledore's words seemed to be a little helpless. But he hates me so much. But he is so nice to Ian. Harry was even more confused. Ian rubbed his nose awkwardly. Is there any way? Who made him look more like Lily's mother? Oh, Merlin's big socks. Praised Lily's mother. Dumbledore looked at Ian's face that looked like his deceased mother, hesitated for a moment, and said, because your mother, Lily, is a good friend of Severus, and their relationship was always good at the time. What? Ian and the others were very surprised. Ian secretly criticized the ambiguity in Dumbledore's words. Is that a good friend? Severus is a complete licker of Lily. But Ian can understand that Dumbledore can't expose their professor in front of the two 11-year-old wizards. Professor Severus Snape used to be a licker of their mother, right? Everyone who has seen Ian says that Ian looks a lot like his mother, and I look exactly like my father when he was young. Harry murmured, so this is the reason why Professor Snape has a completely different attitude towards you. No, you have another thing that looks a lot like your mother, Lily. Dumbledore pointed to Harry's eyes. These green eyes. Eyes. Harry subconsciously touched his eyes. Yes, Lily's eyes. Dumbledore's voice became very light. As if he was recalling, he was looking at Lily through you two brothers. Harry was shocked. Ian was sure that if Harry knew the love Snape had for Lily, he would be even more shocked. Okay, kids, do you have any other questions? Dumbledore stood up and picked up a bag of strange-tasting beans. Would you like one? When I was young, I ate one that tasted like shit. Harry waved his hand. No, Professor, I don't have any other questions. Ian raised his hand curiously. Professor Dumbledore, how do you know it tastes like shit? Could it be that Dumbledore has tasted it? Hiss. So terrible. Dumbledore glanced at Ian lightly, until Ian scratched his head uncomfortably. Then he retracted his gaze. Well, you know, young people are always a little curious. Honey. Ian's sad face. You are such a ruthless person. You, Dumbledore, you have this kind of curiosity. You will succeed in everything you do. Have a good rest, children. There will be a dinner tonight. Tomorrow, you can go home. Dumbledore walked out the door carelessly with two different looks. Professor Dumbledore. Dumbledore turned around and looked at Ian. Ian looked straight into those blue eyes. Professor, see you at the dinner. This year, the college couple still belong to us Slytherins. Dumbledore was stunned, then laughed. See you tonight, children. After that, Dumbledore turned and left the medical wing. Madame Pomfrey, the school doctor, is a kind woman, but very strict. Ms. Pomfrey, only 5 minutes. Harry pleaded. That won't work either. Madame Pomfrey directly rejected Harry. Ian also wanted to see Hermione and Cassandra, whispering, but you also let Professor Dumbledore in? Because he is the headmaster. Madame Pomfrey said confidently, you two lie down and rest. You need a rest. We will just lie down and do nothing, Madame Pomfrey. Ian blinked his beautiful green eyes and acted cute. Please. One trick to eat all the freshness. Anyway, when he was in the orphanage, those sisters and aunts would agree to him every time. Sure enough, Madame Pomfrey was defeated. She couldn't stand the cuteness of children, not to mention that Ian was so handsome and cute. Okay, I'm really scared of you, but you can't move around, understand? Okay, Madame Pomfrey. So, Harry and Ian met Hermione and others. Ian, Hermione, and Cassandra trotted in. The two wanted to throw themselves on Ian, but because of the wounds on his body, they had to give up. Ian, are you okay? Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Hermione sat on the bed, holding Ian's hand, her eyes full of worry. Ian held Hermione's hand in return. Don't worry, Hermione, I'm fine. How can you be okay? When Professor Dumbledore brought you back, there was blood on the corners of your mouth and collar. Cassandra suppressed her smile. I was so worried. It's really okay, Cassandra. Look, I'm fine, aren't I? Ian said, and was about to get out of bed and turn around. Ian, lie down quickly, move. Hermione and Cassandra quickly held Ian down. Ian had to give up and lie back on the bed. Okay, I won't move, don't worry. Harry and the other two looked at each other at this scene, and Harry wanted to ask Hermione and Cassandra. Do they remember that he was also injured? Are they no longer friends? Ahem. Harry deliberately coughed twice. Hermione and Cassandra then remembered Harry beside them. and hurriedly said a few words of concern. "Harry, how are you?" Hermione asked. "Yes, Harry, are you okay?" Cassandra also asked. Harry waved his hand. "I'm fine." "What happened after you two passed through the black flame?" Ronald asked hurriedly. Draco couldn't help nodding. "That's right. We only know that Professor Quirrell died, and the rest is not clear." "So, you two are talking nonsense everywhere." Ian glanced at Draco and Ronald. Draco touched his nose embarrassedly. "We just exaggerated." "I'll be damned if I believe you." Ian glared at Draco. "So what happened?" Hermione interrupted the quarrel between Ian and Draco. Harry and Ian looked at each other, and finally Harry spoke up and told everything that happened after the Black Flame. Of course, Harry concealed the matter of Severus and their parents. When they heard that the face under Quirrell's turban was Voldemort, they all exclaimed. "You see, I said Professor Snape was definitely not a bad person," Draco said smugly. "You still don't believe me." "Come on, hindsight." Ronald rolled his eyes. "I don't know who finally believed that Snape was your godfather." Draco was speechless. After all, Ronald was telling the truth. "So you two defeated Voldemort." Hermione got the point. "You can say that." Ian nodded. "But Voldemort is not completely dead. Yes, his residual soul is still outside." Harry added, "But he can no longer use the Philosopher's Stone to reshape his body." "So the Philosopher's Stone is really destroyed?" Cassandra, like Ian, felt it was a pity. That Nicholas Flamel, who lived for more than 600 years, is also going to die. Hermione sighed. "Facing death is a terrible thing." "That's what I said." Harry seemed to have metaconfidant, but Dumbledore thinks he said, "For people with a very clear mind, death is just a great adventure in the square." Ronald curled his lips. "Sometimes I really think Dumbledore is weird, like an old madman." Several people nodded in agreement. Sometimes they couldn't understand Dumbledore's train of thought. "What happened after you passed through the purple flame?" Ian asked. "After we returned, we were going to rush to the owl shed to contact Professor Dumbledore, but we ran into Professor Snape in the hallway." Hermione said, glancing at Ian. "He asked us if Ian was already on the 4th floor. Then he ran to the 4th floor like crazy." Cassandra continued. "We didn't know what happened, but we hurried to follow him. When we got there, we found that Professor Dumbledore was already there." Draco said, "Ian, you didn't see that Professor Snape's eyes were red at the time, and he was desperately pouring potion into your mouth. I thought he was pouring poison into you at the time. After all, he looked really anxious." Cassandra said faintly, "Snape is indeed worried about Ian." Harry said with a strange look on his face. He now feels that it is the credit of his green eyes that Snape didn't beat him to death. "Then what?" Ian asked. "Then Dumbledore let us go back first." Ronald spread his hands. "Then Madame Pomfrey took us to the hospital wing." Ian and Harry looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. They were really too impulsive this time, and it can be said to be reckless. "Ian, the impulse is yours, and the personality is mine." If Dumbledore hadn't been staring at him, he would have played such a childish game with a few 11-year-old children just to maintain his personality. Chapter 73. The Terrible Dumbledore, Ian, Harry. Hermione looked around and whispered, "I always feel that Professor Dumbledore did it on purpose. He gave Harry the invisibility cloak on purpose. Everything seems to be guiding us on purpose." Cassandra's expression was very solemn. "If that's the case, then I think Professor Dumbledore is really a bit scary. I mean his calculations." Ian looked at the two little witches in surprise. Dumbledore was right. They were both very smart. However, Ian didn't mean to speak for Dumbledore. He thought there was nothing wrong with what Hermione and the others said. To be honest, if anyone thinks that Dumbledore, the white devil who can defeat Grindelwald, terrify Voldemort, and even the Minister of Magic has to rely on him, is a kind old man, then they are totally wrong. This old man is so scary. Professor Dumbledore does intend to guide us. Harry sighed, but his original intention is good. Yes, he taught us a lot of useful principles, didn't he? Ian saw this and said quickly, "Besides, I think he did the right thing. Harry and I will have to face Voldemort sooner or later. This is inevitable." "Yes, he did teach you two a lot of useful principles." Draco rolled his eyes, but could you please not let us practice them?" Several people laughed. Even Hermione and Cassandra couldn't help laughing. "Okay, this matter is over." Ian stretched. "Finally, I can have a good sleep." "Yes, we still have to attend the College Cup dinner in the evening." Harry also said with some anticipation, "I don't know which college will win the College Cup. Anyway, it will definitely not be our Gryffindor." Hermione rolled her eyes. Ronald also had a bitter face. "We are the last one." Draco raised his eyebrows. "Our Slytherin is the first again this time, for 7 consecutive years, 7 consecutive championships." Ian and Cassandra also proudly puffed up their chests. "Yes, that's right, we are Slytherin students." Seeing Ian's look, Hermione covered Ian's face with her hand. Seeing his smug look, she wanted to hit Ian now. "Why don't you kids go back to rest? It's been 15 minutes. At this moment, Madame Pomfrey came in and glared at a few people. "Especially you, Ian, Harry. You two need to rest." Ian and Harry smiled awkwardly and said nothing. "Okay, leave quickly. The two of them need to rest." Madame Pomfrey kicked Hermione and the other 4 out like chickens. "See you tonight, guys." Ian waved and lay back on the bed with Harry. The two slept soundly until the night, and felt that their vitality was almost restored. As night fell, the castle was decorated with lights and was very lively. All the little wizards were happy about the arrival of the holiday, except Ian and Harry. "Ms. Pomfrey, Professor Dumbledore has allowed us to go to the College Cup dinner." Ian and Harry had just slipped out of bed when they were caught by Madame Pomfrey. "I know." Madame Pomfrey pointed outside the door. "Someone is here to see you again." Ian and Harry looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. "Who is here?" Ian looked outside the door. Before Ian finished speaking, Hagrid came in sideways. Every time Hagrid walked into the room, he looked like a giant. He sat down next to Harry, took one look at the brothers, and started crying sadly. "It's all my fault. This idiot. I'm an idiot." Hagrid covered his face with his hands and cried. "I told WD how to get through Fluffy. I told him. He knew everything except this, but I told him." Ian opened his mouth and looked at Hagrid in shock. "No, buddy. You started with 0 frames. You almost died. All for a dragon egg. I will never drink again. I should be kicked out and be a muggle for the rest of my life." Hagrid trembled with sorrow and regret, and big tears seeped into his beard. "Hagrid, don't cry." Harry panicked and hurried to comfort Hagrid. Ian also nodded to comfort him. "Hagrid, don't blame you. That's Voldemort. Even if you don't tell him, he will always find out. But you two almost died." Hagrid sobbed. Don't say that name. He is the mysterious man." "Hagrid, what can Voldemort do?" Harry shouted loudly. And after seeing Hagrid was frightened and panicked, he softened his tone. "Ian and I met him, called his name in front of him. Ian even said he was a rubbish." "Okay, Hagrid, don't cry." Ian patted the half-blood giant on the shoulder. "Come, eat some strange beans. Professor Dumbledore said that he ate something that tasted like dog shit when he was young." "I won't eat it." "You eat it." Hagrid wiped his tears. "I brought you a gift." Ian sat up straight immediately, looking at Hagrid expectantly. "What gift? Acromantula venom or unicorn hair? Or dragon skin and dragon blood? Will be rock skin cake." Harry's smile froze when he thought of the taste of rock skin cake. "No." Hagrid took out 2 books with beautiful covers from his arms. "Dumbledore gave me a day off yesterday and asked me to sort it out. Of course, he should have fired me." Ian raised his hand and stopped Hagrid's self-pity. Okay, I won't say anything more." Hagrid whispered, "This is for you, Ian, Harry." The two took Hagrid's gift and opened it curiously. It was full of photos. On every page, smiling and waving at him, were their parents Lily Potter and James Potter. I sent an owl to Lily and James, old classmates, to ask them for the photo. "Ian, Harry, do you like it?" Harry was speechless, and Ian looked at Hagrid with gratitude. "Thank you, Hagrid. This is really the best gift we have ever received." Harry nodded vigorously. "Hagrid, we are going to the dinner." Ian carefully put the book in his pocket. "Do you want to go with us?" No, you go." Hagrid shook his head quickly. "I am a sinner. I shouldn't." "Hey, don't say that." Harry and Ian interrupted Hagrid in unison. Hagrid wanted to say something, but was pulled out of the door by Ian and Harry. "Hagrid, we have to leave quickly. The dinner is about to start." That's right. Hagrid, don't think too much. Facing Voldemort directly is actually not that bad. Harry and Ian pulled Hagrid and trotted all the way to the door of the hall. Chapter 74. The House Cup Winner. The end of the first grade, the hall was decorated with green and silver, representing Slytherin, to celebrate their winning of the House Cup for 7 consecutive years. On the wall behind the guest of honor, there was a huge banner with a Slytherin snake painted on it. The little wizards from the 4 houses had already taken their seats and were talking happily. As soon as Ian and Harry walked in, the hall suddenly became silent, and then everyone suddenly started talking loudly again. The 2 brothers deliberately ignored the burning eyes and sat in their own houses. Prefect Potter, I heard that you defeated Professor Quirrell. Prefect Potter, how are you? Ian, are you feeling better? As soon as Ian sat down at the Slytherin table, the little snakes came up and asked in a flurry. I'm fine. Ian smiled at the little snakes. I'm fine. I can't be better. I'm telling you, you don't know. Ian is amazing. He's not at all inferior to Quirrell in a fight. Draco was talking excitedly, as if he had defeated Quirrell himself. Ian smiled and listened to Draco's boasting for a while, then interrupted him. Okay, Draco, it's not as exaggerated as you said. Very good, Draco. You said it very well. Praise him more. The situation at the Gryffindor long table was exactly the same as that on the Slytherin side. Harry was praised by everyone, and the savior was once again sought after by Gryffindor. After a while, Dumbledore stood up and waved to everyone, and the noise in the hall gradually subsided. Another year has passed, Dumbledore said happily. Before you enjoy these delicious dishes, I must trouble you to listen to the clitch S of an old man like me. What a wonderful year it is. Your little brains must be richer than in the past. Dumbledore smiled. There is a whole holiday waiting for you, so that you can digest those things before the next semester starts and free up your mind. Now, as far as I know, we must first hold the awards ceremony for the College Cup. The specific scores of each college are as follows. 4th place, Gryffindor, 400 points. 3rd place, Hufflepuff, 402 points. Ravenclaw, 405 points. Slytherin, 410 points. A thunderous cheer and stomping sound suddenly broke out on the Slytherin dining table. Draco even knocked the table hard with his high-footed wine glass to express his joy. Yes, yes, well done, Slytherin. Dumbledore looked at the green all over the hall and praised. Ian secretly rolled his eyes when no one noticed. Fortunately, he brought Cassandra and Draco to participate in this level-breaking game. Otherwise, the Slytherin College Cup would have been given to Gryffindor by Dumbledore. A real man is born in the world. How can he be depressed and inferior to others? He, Ian Potter, must be the most shining one in Hogwarts. However, the most recent events must also be taken into account. Dumbledore suddenly changed the subject. The hall became very quiet, and the rampant smiles of the Slytherin snakes also subsided a little. Dumbledore cleared his throat. I still have the last few points to distribute. Let me see. That's right. First of all, Mr. Ronald Weasley. When Dumbledore called his name, Ronald's face suddenly turned red, almost catching up with the color of his hair. He won the most exciting game of wizard chess in Hogwarts in many years, and I rewarded Gryffindor College with 50 points for this. As soon as Dumbledore finished speaking, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly became weird. Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Huh? The College Cup is going to be replaced. Gryffindor. 50 points. Have they welcomed spring in Gryffindor? Slytherin, damn. Dumbledore, what the hell are you doing? Are you going to cover up our College Cup? No matter what the students of the other 3 colleges thought, the little lions of Gryffindor immediately cheered loudly after being confused. Gryffindor's cheers almost overturned the enchanted ceiling, and the stars above their heads seemed to be shaken slightly. Ian could even hear Percy Weasley at the Gryffindor long table telling other prefects loudly, "It's my brother, you know. My youngest brother, Ronald Weasley. He successfully passed Professor McGonagall's giant chessboard array." Ian looked at the listless Slytherin and shook his head silently. This is just the beginning. You know, in the original plot, the Olby really spared no effort to give Gryffindor extra points tonight. I say, why are you sad? Ian patted the platinum head speechlessly. We went together. How can we not get extra points? Draco also reacted, scratched his head, and laughed twice. Yes. I forgot. Ian, don't pay attention to him. He's just a fool like Ronald. Cassandra drank a sip of pumpkin juice elegantly and complained. The Slytherins around the three people also reacted when they heard this. Yes, even if Dumbledore gave extra points, they Slytherin would also give extra points. There's still the first, no impact. The second item belongs to our Gryffindor, Miss Hermione Granger, and Slytherin Miss Wally. The two of them faced the fire and calmly made logical inferences. I will reward Gryffindor and Slytherin with 50 copies each. The Gryffindor classmates around the Gryffindor trio were all ecstatic, jumping up and down at the dining table. They had risen a full 100 points. They had surpassed Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw. And this time, the Slytherin snakes were no longer depressed. When they heard the score, they immediately cheered loudly like the Gryffindors. Theodore and Blaze shouted loudly to the Gryffindor table. There's also a share for us. Don't forget that Cassandra is also very smart. Cassandra raised her head proudly. That's right. She is as smart as Hermione. Third place Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter. 980. Dumbledore looked at the Slytherin table. You have performed a wonderful Quidditch together and demonstrated excellent flying skills. I will reward Slytherin and Gryffindor with 50 points each. Draco immediately raised his chin and told everyone without hiding it. That's right. He, Malfoy, one of the youngest Seekers in 100 years. Of course, Harry Potter also showed his fearless courage and extraordinary courage in the end, for which I will give Gryffindor an extra 40 points. Harry stood up excitedly, and he alone added 90 points to Gryffindor. A full day. The hall returned to silence, and everyone's eyes were focused on Ian. Dumbledore also smiled at Ian and said slowly, Of course. And our Mr. Ian Potter, he led the whole process well, used excellent spells to complete the test of the Devil's Snare, showed the precious quality of never leaving his friends in the chess game, and showed courage that was no less than Gryffindor at the last moment. A very good little wizard. Ian blushed rarely and thought to himself, Old B, if you can talk, please say more. So I decided for Ian Mr. Potter is excellent. Add 100 points to Slytherin. The whole hall was in an uproar, and Ian was surrounded by the Slytherin crowd. Ian Potter, Ian Potter, Ian Potter. The noise was deafening. Chapter 75, Nicholas Flamel has sent you an invitation to become his disciple. The noise in the hall was deafening. Those students who could still count their scores in their heads while shouting their throats hoarse knew that Slytherin was now 610 points, only 20 points behind Gryffindor. There are many kinds of courage, Dumbledore smiled. We need superhuman courage to deal with our enemies, and it also takes great courage to stand our ground in front of our friends. Therefore, in the end, I will reward Mr. Neville Longbottom with 20 points. If someone stood outside the hall at this moment, they might have thought there was an explosion here. The cheers at the Gryffindor table were getting louder and louder. 610 points. They are the same as Slytherin. 610 points. They tied. Harry, Ronald, and Hermione immediately stood up and cheered loudly, only to see Neville's face pale with surprise, and he was immediately drowned by the crowd who rushed up to hug him. He never won a point for Gryffindor. Ian, who was sitting in Slytherin, frowned. Although the Old B did not deprive Slytherin of the House Cup, he tied the score to build momentum for Harry and added 20 points to Neville, who did not contribute at all in the challenge. Harry's extra 40 points were because he dealt with Voldemort. Ian turned his head and looked at Dumbledore, who was smiling at the teacher's seat. The Old B seemed fair, but this kind of fairness itself was unfair. Ian understood that Dumbledore would not watch only himself get praised while Harry, the savior from Gryffindor, was suppressed by a Slytherin brother in the 10th year. But Ian still felt unhappy in his heart. What he wanted was to be unique, not the same as others. Okay, we're going to share the House Cup with Gryffindor. Draco pouted. Ian nodded and looked at Snape in the teacher's seat. Although he was a little unhappy, He reluctantly accepted the outcome and shook hands with Professor McGonagall in a friendly manner. This means Dumbledore had to shout loudly to drown out the thunderous cheers. We need to make some small changes to the decorations here. He clapped his hands, and immediately, half of the green hanging ribbons turned bright red, and the silver turned gold. The huge Slytherin snake became smaller, and there was a majestic Gryffindor lion beside it. Dumbledore raised his goblet high. For the outstanding performance of the two colleges, I propose a toast to celebrate. The Gryffindors immediately raised their goblets. Cheers! Cheers! Share the college cup. The Slytherin snakes all grumbled angrily. They had won the College Cup championship for 7 consecutive years, and they just shared it with others. This year's College Cup came to an end. Although Slytherin and Gryffindor won the College Cup together, Ian's outstanding performance still made him gain great reputation in Hogwarts. Ian, Professor Dumbledore asked you to go to the principal's office. The password is Olean Snow. After the dinner, Professor McGonagall suddenly stopped Ian, who was going back to the college. Okay, Professor. Although Ian was puzzled as to why Dumbledore asked him to go to the principal's office, he immediately agreed. He walked out of the hall quickly, crossed the entrance hall, walked up the marble stairs, and came to the door of the principal's office on the 8th floor of the castle. Lemon Snow, Ian said to the stone statue at the door. The stone statue suddenly came alive and jumped to the side, revealing a spiral staircase. Ian walked up the stairs quickly and came to the principal's office. Professor Dumbledore. Ian stood at the door of the office and looked inside. Ah, Ian, you're here, Dumbledore, who was sitting behind the desk, raised his head and looked at him through his half-moon glasses. Sit down. Ian sat on the chair in front of the desk, looking at the smiling Dumbledore, and felt a little nervous for some reason. Why does this old man look at him like that? Ian, I asked you to come to the office mainly because an old friend of mine wants me to ask you if you are willing to learn some special skills from him. Dumbledore said slowly. Ian raised his eyebrows in confusion. Special skills? Professor Dumbledore, your old friend is Nicholas Flamel. You should be familiar with him. Dumbledore said with a smile. He learned that you little wizards protected his Philosopher's Stone, so he wanted to ask you if you were willing to learn alchemy. Ian was stunned, and then a burst of ecstasy surged in his heart. Nicholas Flamel. That's Nicholas Flamel. If he learns alchemy, he will never lack money in his life, let alone other things. Dumbledore saw Ian's stunned look and smiled and said, Ian, what do you think? Of course I do. Ian came back to his senses and immediately said, I am very willing to learn alchemy from Mr. Nicholas Flamel. I will tell Nico your answer. Dumbledore reached out and took a handful of candy and handed it to Ian. Have some candy. This is a new product of Honeydukes. Thank you, Professor. Ian took the candy and asked, Professor, I am not the only one who saved the Philosopher's Stone. If it is because I fought Voldemort in the end, then it is 1 + 4. Ian was very curious. Why didn't Harry receive Nicholas' invitation? Because Nico thinks that you are more talented than Harry. Dumbledore explained, not every little wizard can learn ancient magic. So that's how it is. Ian nodded in understanding. He said, how could Dumbledore miss Harry, the savior of Gryffindor, for such a good thing? It turned out that Nicholas Flamel didn't like him. Ian, you can say that you are the most talented child I have ever seen, even better than Voldemort back then. Dumbledore said with emotion, his tone suddenly a little nostalgic. Even I and my friends from a long time ago didn't say that they could learn an ancient magic in the 1st grade. Ian blinked his eyes. He naturally knew who Dumbledore was talking about, his old lover, Gellert Grindelwald. 2 months of infatuation, a century of unspeakable. I want to be modest, Professor, but I'm still a little complacent after being evaluated like that by you. Ian grinned and said, half jokingly, who told me to be so outstanding? Confidence and strength are the most rare qualities at your age. Dumbledore laughed. Ian, you really deserve to be complacent. I believe you will achieve great things. Voldemort is terrible, but he did do a great thing, and my friend from a long time ago also did a great thing. Ian was silent. He understood Dumbledore's point. This smart old man was hinting that he should not go astray. Professor, Ian raised his head and looked straight at Dumbledore. There's nothing wrong with magic, and there's nothing wrong with dark magic. The wrong thing is the people who master it, right? Dumbledore looked at Ian steadily and then laughed. You're right, Ian. Magic is not black or white. Only the people who use it are good or bad. Well, it's getting late. Your friend should still be waiting for you in the hall. Go back quickly. Dumbledore said with a smile. I'll take you to France to see Nico in a week. Okay, Professor. Ian stood up from his chair and bowed slightly to Dumbledore. Dumbledore watched the little wizard walk to the door step by step and saw him suddenly turn around and look at him, feeling a little surprised. Professor Dumbledore, the big things that Voldemort and your friend did were to revolutionize the wizarding world and abolish the statue of secrecy, right? Dumbledore did not answer Ian, but just smiled at him. Ian looked at Dumbledore deeply, turned around, and walked out of the headmaster's office. After Ian left, Dumbledore sat alone behind his desk, and the smile on his face gradually faded. He stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the direction of the forbidden forest outside the window, wondering what he was thinking. Do you think I should go see him? Will he see the future of this child? Or the future of the wizarding world? The portraits on the wall were silent. They knew that Dumbledore had made his own decision. After Ian returned to the hall, Hermione and others surrounded him. Ian, what does Professor Dumbledore want to see you about? Hermione asked curiously. Ian smiled slightly and deliberately kept it a secret. Guess? Is it because of our protection of the Philosopher's Stone? Harry guessed. Half right. Ian raised his eyebrows. Nicholas Flamel wants to take me as his apprentice. What? Hermione and the others exclaimed, attracting many people to look at them. The 6 people quickly came to the corner of the auditorium and discussed in a low voice. Ian, that's Nicholas Flamel. Ronald looked at Ian with envy. He wants to take you as his apprentice? Ian, you're going to be a big shot. Ian shook the alchemy necklace on his neck. See, when I learn alchemy, I will give you one of these things for Christmas. This is not important. If you can create the Philosopher's Stone like Nicholas Flamel Draco joked, give us 1 Philosopher's Stone each. That's enough. Harry and Ronald couldn't help but nod. Right. Huh. Ian's mouth twitched. You 3 are dreaming. Is the Philosopher's Stone so easy to make? The Philosopher's Stone is piled with human lives. Nicholas Flamel was able to create the Philosopher's Stone in large part because of the background of the Great Plague in the Middle Ages. The Plague of the Black Death killed 25 million Europeans, accounting for 1/3 of the total population of Europe at that time. The number of deaths was too high, so he could use it to make the Philosopher's Stone. This is not the Middle Ages with plague, nor is it a world war. Where can he get so many dying lives to make the Philosopher's Stone? After playing for a while, Ian took Cassandra and Draco back to the Slytherin common room. Ian, you really won't come to my house to play during the summer vacation? Cassandra looked at Ian with some disappointment. You didn't invite me to visit your manor. Draco also nodded. That's right, you can come to my Malfoy manor to have a look. I have white peacocks at home. Ian touched his nose awkwardly. Next time, I will definitely go back to Manchester with Hermione first. Cassandra, since I was 7 years old, Uncle Granger and Aunt Granger have always raised me as their own son. For me, that is home. After listening to Ian's explanation, Cassandra's disappointment finally dissipated a little, and she nodded gently. Okay. Seeing that Cassandra was still a little depressed, Ian smiled and comforted her. I will definitely invite you to the Potter Old House next Christmas or Easter holiday. Besides, you can also come to Manscott to play with me and Hermione. Yes, Zhao. Humph. I don't want to go to her to play. Cassandra snorted and muttered softly. I want to spend time with you alone. What did you say? Ian didn't hear Cassandra's words clearly and asked subconsciously. Nothing. Cassandra shook her head and stood up from the sofa. Ian, it's getting late. I'm going back to the dormitory to rest first. You should also rest early. Good night. Well, and Draco, you too. Draco, you took me with you, what? Am I also a part of your play? Let's go back to sleep. Ian pressed the platinum head and walked towards the boys' dormitory. Why are you staring at Cassandra? Look at your pansy Parkinson. Draco / heartbroken. The real heartbreak is not a quarrel. No matter how sad Draco was, Ian had already returned to the dormitory to sleep. Late at night, Ian lay on the bed, thinking about what happened today, and couldn't help sighing in his heart. Dumbledore was still very defensive against him. The last thing he said today about Voldemort and Grindelwald seemed to be unintentionally raised, but it was actually a test of him. Fortunately, he has 30 years of life experience in his two lives, so he can calmly face Dumbledore, the old fox. If he was really an 11-year-old wizard, Ian was sure that he would never be as calm as today. He might really express some of his thoughts about the future under Dumbledore's intentional guidance. At that time, what awaits him may not be such a gentle test as now. TSK, what a scheming chicken bolito. Chapter 76, Ian's three daughters Shura Field. The end of the first year, it seemed that all of a sudden, the little wizard's wardrobes were empty and everything was packed into suitcases. At 9 o'clock, the little wizards of Hogwarts had already boarded the Hogwarts Express. They talked and laughed all the way, watching the countryside outside the window become greener and neater. As the train passed through Muggle towns, they ate BB's beans, took off their wizard robes, and put on jackets and short tops. The school notice had also been sent to every student, warning them that they were not allowed to use magic during the holidays. I still want to learn more spells at home. Hermione sighed a little disappointedly and stuffed standard spells, elementary, into her backpack. I can use my father's wand, and the Ministry of Magic's Healed can't work on adult wizards. Draco said proudly, when I learn a new spell, I'll show it to you when school starts. Draco, you'd better behave yourself and stop doing mischief during the holidays. Ian teased Harry's little green snake twice and said. Draco curled his lips when he heard this. Ian, I don't think you will be obedient and not use magic during the holidays. This is not like you at all. So I decided to use this summer vacation to learn silent and wandless casting and strive to be able to use them basically in the 3rd grade. Ian shrugged and said nonchalantly, in this way, the Ministry of Magic will not find out about Healed. 3rd grade. Draco widened his eyes. Ian, you have to learn it in the 3rd grade? I know you are a genius, but this is too fast. Fast? It's okay. Ian tilted his head in confusion. It's only in the 3rd grade that it can be used basically as this fast. You know, in the fan fiction he read in his previous life, those predecessors who ignored the rules of the world and traveled through time and space were already able to use wandless casting proficiently in the 1st grade. If he can be like those predecessors, he can really use wandless casting in the 1st grade, even weapons of mass destruction, such as Avada Kedavra. Why does he need to pretend to be a good boy in front of Dumbledore? He still needs to think about destroying a Voldemort's Horcrux? He would just pull Dumbledore off the headmaster's seat, do it himself, and then slap Voldemort to death, the kind that couldn't be deader. Of course, this is just a thought. It's not even 500 yuan. Draco looked at Ian speechlessly. Do you know how difficult it is to cast a spell without a wand? Many adult wizards can't even master it. Someone will learn it. Since they can learn it, so can I. Ian smiled slightly and said confidently, Professor Dumbledore said that I am the most talented little wizard he has ever seen. Even that demon can't compare to me. Who can learn an ancient magic in the 1st grade? Okay, talent is always different. Draco rolled his eyes. Harry on the side also came over. Ian, I understand silent casting, but what is wandless casting? Can you cast spells without a wand? That's right, Harry. When your magic control reaches a certain level, you can cast spells without the help of a wand. Ian nodded. Powerful wizards like Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall can easily cast spells without a wand. That's amazing. I wonder when I can be like them. Harry said with longing, why don't I take advantage of this holiday to learn silent and wandless casting and try to use them before the 3rd year? Ian is fine, but you. Cassandra mercilessly broke Harry's fantasy. Harry, you haven't even learned how to cast spells with a wand, and you want to cast spells without a wand? I think you should get less sleep. Harry immediately wilted, and even Ronald beside him couldn't help but show a sympathetic look. Hermione also agreed with Cassandra. That's right, Harry. You should do it step by step. Don't think about riding a rocket like Ian. We can't catch up with him. They don't think that Harry, as the future big brother, can master wandless casting in the 3rd grade like Ian, a real super genius. It's good enough for Harry to completely master silent casting in the 6th grade. Okay, I know. Harry sighed and accepted this reality helplessly. Ian spread his hands and showed innocence. Harry, this is not my brother who deliberately hit you. Don't look at me like that. Everyone burst into laughter, and even Harry couldn't help but smile. Amid the cheerful laughter, the train slowly drove into King's Cross Station. It took a long time for all the little wizards to walk out of the platform. A shriveled old guard was guarding the partition wall, allowing only 3 or 4 people to pass at a time, so that they would not burst out of the solid wall at the same time and attract the attention of the muggles. "You must come to our house this summer vacation," Ronald said while pushing the luggage. "All of you must come. I will send an owl to invite you." Several people agreed, except Draco, who looked gloomy. "I won't go. If my father knew that I went to the Weasleys' house, he might kill me." Okay then, Ronald was a little disappointed, but also understood. After all, the relationship between Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy was not very good. When the two met, they were like 2 barrels of explosives, which would explode at any time. "It's okay. You can all come and play with me and Hermione. You're always welcome in our house," Ian said with a smile. "Draco, your father will never stop you from playing with me. At least not now. It will not be until the 5th grade, when Voldemort is resurrected, that Olivius Malfoy will stop their friendship. Of course, whether Draco listens or not is another matter." Hermione also nodded repeatedly. "Yes, you can come to our house. We can go to the playground. Believe me, you will definitely have a novel experience." "Then I will definitely go," Ronald said immediately. Draco and Harry also nodded repeatedly. Only Cassandra had a gnashing expression. Our home. Our home." Even though she knew that Ian and Hermione were childhood sweethearts, their feelings were naturally different, and the boy she was attracted to had already regarded the Grangers as his own parents. But when she heard the 2 of them subconsciously talking about our home, she still felt a little blocked in her heart. Ian naturally noticed Cassandra's expression and sighed slightly in his heart. But he couldn't say anything. He would not make Hermione sad in order to comfort Cassandra. Although he was a scumbag, he was a very principled scumbag. "Cassandra, will you come and play with me and Hermione during the holidays?" Ian turned his head to look at Cassandra and asked with a smile. Cassandra's expression had eased, and she snorted softly. "Since you sincerely invite me, I will go there reluctantly." The group walked towards the partition wall, talking and laughing, and people kept squeezing past them, and some of them said goodbye to Ian and his brother. "Prefect Potter, see you at the beginning of the school." "Prefect Potter, bye." Ian, Harry, the national page. Ronald looked at the waves of little wizards who greeted the brothers, and couldn't help but smack his lips. "You two are really famous." Obviously, Ian is more popular. Harry pointed to the little witches who came over to talk to Ian, but just nodded to him. "They don't have me in their eyes. Only Ian." Draco shook his head silently. "Believe me, sometimes being too popular with girls is not a good thing." Harry and Ronald, listen to what you were saying. Look at you two. Draco took action directly and directed their sights to Hermione and Cassandra. The 2 little witches were looking at Ian with a sneer on their faces. Even though the 2 did not speak, they still felt the biting cold. Harry and Ronald shuddered at the same time and showed sympathy to Ian. It takes skill to play 2 women at the same time. If it were them, they would have been beaten to death by the 2 girls long ago. "Isabella, you are from America." Ian looked at the girl in front of him curiously. "Then why did you come to Hogwarts? Isn't Ilvermorny good?" "Ian, just call me Bella." Isabella blinked at Ian. "Although I am from America, my mother is British, and I think Hogwarts is better than Ilvermorny. When Professor McGonagall came to my house, he told my parents that Hogwarts was the best magic school in the world, and the professors at Ilvermorny did not refute it." Isabella smiled helplessly. "I think this is very telling. Besides, I've always wanted to come to England. I want to see what my mother's hometown looks like." "So that's the case." Ian nodded gently to show his understanding. "So, what do you think of England after seeing it?" Ian asked curiously. "Very good. Both the scenery and the people are great." Isabella smiled. "Especially Hogwarts. I really like it. I live in a small town in Washington State, a rainy town." Isabella looked up at the sky. The weather in England is very good. I like it very much. I like rainy days very much. If I have the chance, I must go to the town you mentioned to take a look, Ian said with a smile. He had to go and see the vampires and werewolves there. If there was a chance, Ian would bring them all together before the war to fight against the noseless monster. Ian believed that the peace-loving magical animals in the town of Forks would certainly accept his threat with pleasure. No. Invitation. After all, once Voldemort is resurrected, the peace-loving people in the wizarding world will have a hard time. It is better to join forces to kill him. Who said that Voldemort only harmed Britain in his heyday? Although he is not as powerful as the first-generation Dark Lord Grindelwald, who has spread throughout Europe and the United States, he has also harassed the American wizarding world. People in the American wizarding world must also hate Voldemort. Then it's a deal. Ian, you must come to my house if you have the chance, Isabella said with a smile. Although the town of Forks cannot compare with a big city like London, it also has its own flavor. Okay, we can communicate this summer, and you can introduce Forks to me. Ian smiled and patted Themis' cage. I asked Themis to help me deliver the letter. It can fly back and forth in less than a day. Isabella also gestured to Ian to look at her owl. Mia can also. It's my owl. The two of them talked happily, and they didn't notice that Hermione and Cassandra's faces were getting darker and darker. Ian, we should go. Mom and Dad must be waiting anxiously. Hermione took Ian's arm and pulled him to her side. If there is anything, let's talk about it when school starts. Ian was stunned for a moment and immediately realized that Hermione was jealous and immediately smiled and nodded. Okay, let's go. He waved at Isabella. Bella, see you at school. Goodbye, Ian. Isabella looked at Ian, who was being pinched by two little witches, in confusion. Huh? Why did they pinch Ian? Did Ian do something bad? Bella was confused. Bella was at a loss, and Bella expressed that she didn't understand. Ian also noticed Bella's puzzled look and immediately turned his head and glared at Hermione and Cassandra. Hey, we're outside. Give me some face. Ian complained in a low voice. There are so many people. The two then let go of their hands and instead put their arms around Ian's arms, looking at Isabella as if to declare sovereignty. Isabella was even more puzzled, but she didn't delve into it. Instead, she said goodbye to them before rushing through the partition wall. See you at school, everyone. See you at school, Bella. Several people waved at Isabella. Seeing Isabella disappear, Cassandra pinched Ian's soft waist. Well, Ian, you are really popular. That's right, Bella keeps talking to you. She is obviously my roommate. Hermione also pinched Ian hard. Tell me, what is your relationship? Relationship? Ian's mind suddenly twitched. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. The two little witches narrowed their eyes, exuding a dangerous aura. Isabella, who had passed through the wall, seemed to hear a scream, and she looked back in confusion. Is it an illusion? She seemed to hear Ian's voice. She must have heard it wrong. Isabella shook her head and hurried out of the station at the urging of her parents. Chapter 77, Aunt Petunia. Ian, are you not doing well, Hogwarts? Why is your face so pale? Mrs. Granger looked at Ian with a worried look. Ian swallowed his saliva and faced the kind eyes of the two little witches, forcing a smile. I'm fine, Aunt Granger, I'm fine. Mrs. Granger nodded doubtfully and then looked at Cassandra. Hermione, Ian, this is the Cassandra you mentioned in your letter, right? This child is so beautiful. Thank you for the compliment, Aunt. Cassandra smiled gracefully. I am Cassandra Worley, a friend of Hermione and Ian. A very good friend. Cassandra deliberately emphasized the pronunciation of the words Ian's friend and pinched Ian hard where no one could see. Ian grimaced in pain, but did not dare to scream, so as not to worry the Grangers. Mom and Dad, this is Harry, Draco, Ronald, all of whom are our good friends. Hermione pulled Harry to his parents. Harry is Ian's twin brother. My child, my poor child. Mrs. Granger looked at the lightning scar on Harry's forehead and hugged him distressfully. You must have suffered a lot. Harry was rarely hugged so closely. He scratched his head shyly. No, I'm doing well, ma'am. I haven't thanked you yet. You and Mr. Granger have been taking care of Ian. Silly child. Why, thank you. Just call me Aunt Granger. Mrs. Granger interrupted Harry. Harry, if you want, you can live with us. Yes, Harry, I think you will like Manchester. Mr. Granger also smiled and said, although our family is not a wealthy family, it is more than enough to support child. That's true. Mr. Granger is a dentist and Mrs. Granger is a lawyer. Both of them are high-income earners. Harry was stunned when he heard this, and then his eyes turned red. The Grangers panicked instantly. Harry, what's wrong with you? If you don't want to... Uncle Granger, Aunt Granger, Harry. Ian shook his head, a little helpless. Harry is quite emotional. Harry couldn't help nodding. Ian is right. I am more emotional. Aunt Granger, I'm willing to go. Great, Hermione cheered. This way Harry doesn't have to go back to his aunt's house. Yes, Harry lives with us, and Ian and Harry can be taken care of. Mr. Granger also nodded and said, then it's settled, Harry. When we wait for your aunt and others to come, we will tell them to pack up your things directly and go home together. Harry nodded repeatedly. Tears were about to flow out. The few people talked for a while, and the Wallace, the Weasleys, and the Malfoys arrived one after another. Ian, Harry. Mrs. Weasley rushed over and hugged the two of them. Oh my God, you have experienced too much this year, especially you, Fern. Mrs. Weasley, thank you for the sweater you gave me. It's very comfortable and beautiful. Ian smiled obediently. As long as you like it, I tell you, Ronald and our family is grateful for your care. Mrs. Weasley let go of the two and looked at them with gratitude. Especially you. Ian, I've heard that if it weren't for you, Ronald, Mrs. Weasley, you are too kind. We are friends with Ronald. Ian waved his hand quickly. It is normal for friends to help each other. Harry didn't know what to say, so he could only nod his head. Yes, yes. Two good children. You can just call me Aunt Molly. Your mother Lily and I are very good friends. Molly Weasley said with a smile. If you have time in the future, come to our house. Although we have many children, it is definitely lively. Mom, I have already invited Harry and Ian. They will come during the holidays. Ronald poked his head out from the side. Right, Harry, Ian? Yes, Aunt Molly, we will definitely go. Harry nodded vigorously. Mom, we should go. Dad is going to fight with Malfoy. Ronald saw the sparks when his father and Malfoy looked at each other and quickly pulled Mrs. Weasley away. Goodbye, friends. Ronald waved to the few people. Everyone, I'll leave first. Draco also saw this scene, waved awkwardly. Goodbye after that, he ran to the big Malfoy. Donald, is this the pure-blood family you mentioned? Mr. Granger frowned. Are wizard families like them so arrogant? Donald Wallace, who was talking to him, nodded slightly. Lucius Malfoy can only represent themselves. Our Wallace family, as well as Ian and Harry's Potter family, including the Weasley family just now, are still very happy to make friends with Muggles. Mr. Granger was relieved. That's good. I was worried that Hermione would be bullied at school. Don't worry, it won't happen. Hogwarts is a very safe place, Mr. Wallace said with a smile, and I think the Malfoy kid has a good relationship with your Hermione. That's right, the children have a good relationship. Mr. Granger also laughed. I said, are you okay? A rough voice came from behind everyone. A red face with a lot of beard around the chin, who looked like he was in a hurry. It was Vernon Dursley, and Petunia and Dudley were standing behind him. Boy, what are you dithering about? Come home with me, Vernon shouted with his eyes wide open. Don't embarrass me here. Harry pursed his lips and met Vernon's eyes. Uncle Vernon, I'm not going back. What did you say? Vernon's eyes widened. You're not going back? What do you mean? What did that old madman who can do magic teach you? Hello, I guess you are Ian and Harry's uncle, Mr. Dursley? Mr. Granger stood up and blocked Harry. I want to talk to you about Harry's matter. Yes, Ian is a child. We have been taking care of him since he was 7 years old, and we have always treated him as our own son. Harry is Ian's biological brother, and we will also... What? Mrs. Granger was interrupted by Petunia's scream before she finished her words. Petunia came to him anxiously. In front of Ian, she grabbed his shoulders and slowly reached out to touch the boy's face, tears falling silently. Red hair and green eyes. Looks very similar to Lily, 90% similar. Aunt Petunia, I'm Ian. Ian was startled by Petunia's reaction, but still greeted her obediently. Let's go. Let's go home. Petunia grabbed Ian's arm and pulled him out of the station. Vernon, take Harry and Dudley with you. Let's go home. The Grangers stopped her. Where are you taking Ian? Ian. Hermione also looked worried. I am his aunt. I will be responsible for the child's daily life. Petunia screamed. His mother is my sister, but Ian is our child. Mrs. Granger was also anxious. Although you are his aunt, you have never taken care of him. Who said that? I will take him home and take good care of him. Petunia said, and gave Vernon a look. Vernon immediately understood and stood in front of Petunia. Yes, we will take him home and take care of him. We are his relatives. You guys. The Grangers were so angry that they couldn't speak. If they really had to argue, they couldn't win against their Aunt Petunia. Aunt Granger, Aunt Petunia, let's go back and talk about these things first. Ian looked around at the other people's looks, and he was so embarrassed that he almost tapped his toes on the ground. There are too many people here. That's right, let's go back and talk. Vernon also reacted, pulling Dudley out. Let's go home and talk slowly. The group returned to number 4, Privet Drive, and Ian and Harry followed the 4 adults into the living room. Hermione was left in the car by the Grangers, and Inley was driven to the room by the Dursleys. We will never give in to Ian and Harry. Mrs. Granger couldn't help but say as soon as she entered the house. Ian has lived in our house since he was 7 years old. He's been our child for a long time. He is my nephew. My sister's blood flows in his body. Petunia glared back without showing weakness. And Harry must live with us. They are my sister's children. We must take care of him. Harry? You take care of Harry. Mrs. Granger seemed to have heard something funny. Don't think I don't know that Harry has been locked in the cupboard under the stairs since he was a child. Tell me, this is taking care of him. So what? Petunia's face flushed. At least we gave him a home. He didn't starve to death outside. You. Mrs. Granger was so angry that she couldn't speak. Stop arguing. Ian rubbed his temple. Stop arguing? Okay. Ian, you tell me who you want to go with. Petunia and Mrs. Granger looked at him at the same time. Ian, Aunt Petunia, I have long regarded Aunt Granger and Uncle Granger as my biological parents. Ian walked silently to the Granger couple. Ian, I didn't know you were still alive. When they sent Harry here, they said that you and Lily died together. They didn't tell me that you were still alive. Petunia became emotional. If you were sent here at that time, I would definitely take good care of you. I know, Aunt Petunia. Ian looked into Petunia's eyes and said seriously, but I already have my own family now. The family I found by myself is not only Harry, Aunt Granger, Uncle Granger, but also Hermione. They are my family. Petunia opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. She suddenly found that the nephew she thought was dead had grown into an independent teenager with his own thoughts and family he could trust. Please give me flowers. No. Blood protection charm. Yes. Only I can protect you two. Petunia grabbed the last straw. You two still have blood protection charm on you. Dumbledore said that as long as you live in a place that has Lily's blood and can be called home, you will be protected from the harm of that Kutu and his men. You will be safe, Aunt. Harry and I are brothers with blood ties, and the blood protection charm will not fail. Ian lowered his head. He had mixed feelings about his Aunt Petunia. On the one hand, it was true that Harry was not a good person. She habitually ignored Harry because of her jealousy of her sister and fear of magic. On the other hand, she knew that Harry was a dangerous person, but she still insisted on letting Harry stay and didn't throw him out to fend for himself. Petunia opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. Aunt Petunia. Harry also looked at Petunia. I want to live with Ian, right in Manchester. Petunia looked at Harry and Ian in front of her, her eyes slightly red. Have you two really decided? Yes, Aunt Petunia. Harry and Ian nodded at the same time. Penny lost all her strength at once, covering her face and crying. Vernon put his arm around his wife's shoulders. He had never seen his wife so helpless before, and his tone was a little angry. Petunia, those two little bastards can leave if they want to. I wanted to kick Harry Potter out for a long time. No, Vernon. Petunia was silent for a long time before she spoke in a hoarse voice. My sister is a wizard, and our whole family is happy for her, but I'm not. I wrote to Dumbledore. and he rejected my request to go to Hogwarts. From that day on, perhaps out of jealousy, I only had deep fear and disgust for Lily's magic. My relationship with Lily was not that bad before we got married. Later, Vernon and I met Lily and your father, James. He was so arrogant and so arrogant. Petunia paused for a moment and continued. We parted unhappily. Lily cried very sadly. We almost stopped communicating, even though I still knew that Lily loved me so much. Penny tried her best to control her tears and looked at Harry. Later, Dumbledore sent you here. The wizarding world killed my sister, so I don't want you to go there to die again. One Harry, that night in Godric Valley. Not only did you and Ian lose your mother, I also lost my sister. I'm not saying this to ask you to forgive my harshness. Penny took a deep breath. I just want to say that I will always miss your mother, my sister, my only sister. Harry stared at Penny in a daze. He never thought that one day he would hear these words from Penny's mouth. Ian. Penny turned her head to look at her little nephew, who looked exactly like her sister. Her lips moved a few times, but she only said one sentence. You look like Lily, like her. Thank you for taking care of Ian for so many years. Thank you. Penny turned her head to look at the Grangers and bowed deeply. Just now, please don't mind. The Grangers waved their hands quickly. We will treat both children as our own. Okay. Ian, Harry, you two go. Petunia wiped her tears and turned to leave. Let's go. Vernon, who had always been very tough, stared at Ian and the others with complicated eyes. He stared, well, if you decide, go with your new guardian and live your wizard life. He always hated magic, but he actually said the word wizard life in the wizarding world. Go. Mr. Granger gave Harry an affirmative look. Harry went upstairs silently and came to his room to pack his luggage. In fact, there was nothing, just two well-fitting clothes. Are you never coming back? Harry turned around and saw Dudley standing at the door, staring at him with a complicated face. Harry nodded, but didn't say a word. He dragged the suitcase and walked out of the room. Goodbye, Dudley, Harry said softly as he passed by Dudley. Harry turned around and looked at Dudley. I never thought you were a fool, nor did I think your existence was superfluous. Dudley pursed his lower lip and whispered, Goodbye, Harry. When the Grangers walked Ian and Harry out of the room, Vernon did not come out to see them off. If possible, come and see your aunt every holiday. When the door was about to close, Ian heard Vernon's voice behind him. We will. Ian turned his head and looked at this middle-aged man who hated wizards, but had an indissoluble bond with wizards. Goodbye, Uncle Vernon. Goodbye. The door was closed, and Petunia's suppressed crying came from behind the door. Let's go, Harry. Ian looked at Hermione sitting in the car, and the girl looked at him with sparkling eyes. Let's go home. Chapter 78, Nicholas Flamel and his wife Ian welcomed his first wizard summer vacation. Although the school left him summer homework, it was not particularly heavy. He also had a lot of time to explore magic and had a very happy time. Harry was also very happy. On the one hand, he was happy because he could live with his brother Ian. On the other hand, Harry finally felt the care from his family. The Grangers really regarded him as a member of the family, and he felt unprecedented warmth. Aunt Granger, I will take care of myself. I think I have stuffed enough food. Ian helplessly watched Mrs. Granger stuff snacks into his suitcase, muttering, Eat more, and you are too thin. The suitcase was already filled with daily necessities. If this suitcase was not covered with a traceless retractable spell, Ian reasonably suspected that his suitcase would be burst by Mrs. Granger. Ian, you must promise your aunt not to forget about food and sleep once you learn magic, okay? Mrs. Granger stuffed the last snack into the suitcase while giving Ian many instructions. Okay, Aunt Granger, I will eat on time and go to bed on time. Ian reluctantly assured Mrs. Granger, and Mr. Granger beside him also patted his wife's 700 shoulder, signaling her not to worry anymore. Ian, I can't bear to leave you. Hermione hugged Ian's waist with red eyes. You are going to France to study with Nicholas Flamel for a month. We have never been apart for such a long time. Ian hugged Hermione back, gently stroked her dark brown hair, and smiled to comfort her. Okay, don't be sad. Hermione, when Nicholas Flamel and I get familiar with each other, if I go to France again, I will take you with me, okay? Hermione sniffed, looked up at Ian, and there were still crystal tears in the corners of her eyes. Really? You will take me with you? Of course, I promise. Ian stretched out his fingers and gently wiped away the tears from the corners of Hermione's eyes. Okay, then you have to write to me every day. Hermione knew how precious it was to be able to study with Nicholas Flamel. So even if she was reluctant, she didn't play tricks to make Ian give up going to France. She couldn't disturb Ian's alchemy study. I will write to you every day, okay? Let Themis deliver it. Ian smiled gently. I will tell you what happened every day. Themis, what do you want to ask? It is a golden eagle, but a certain Potter is really a bad person. Writing letters every day will tire Themis. Hermione shook her head. Although she also hoped to get news from Ian every day, she felt more sorry for Themis. Just write one letter every 3 days, and I will write back to you. Ian smiled and agreed. Okay, then write one letter every 3 days. As for whether he would write every day, only he knew. Harry patted Ian's shoulder. Ian, take care of yourself in France. I will write to you. It's okay, just one letter a week. Ian waved his hand. Hermione's letter is more important. You can wait a while. Harry, although I really don't want to disturb you to say goodbye, but we should go, Ian. Hearing the familiar voice, the 3 little wizards looked at the door in unison. Professor Dumbledore, I'm ready. Ian picked up a suitcase. Let's go. Nicholas Flamel is waiting for us. Professor Dumbledore smiled and motioned Ian to hold his hand. The space suddenly began to distort, and the familiar, pulling feeling came again. When Ian regained the sense of entity, he was already standing in 10 unfamiliar places. Before he had time to look around, Ian began to hold the wall and retched. He could still hold on to the last apparition. Why is it so uncomfortable now? As if he saw Ian's confusion, Dumbledore explained, the last apparition distance was very short. This time, it is an intercontinental move, so the reaction will be greater. Ian made an okay gesture and continued to hold the wall and retched. He felt that he was about to vomit out all his internal organs. A white, thin hand suddenly appeared in Ian's sight, holding a bottle of potion in his hand. This is a potion to relieve discomfort. I think you will need it. Ian raised his head and saw an old man with an old face but vigorous spirit standing in front of him. Lou, Mr. Flamel. Ian took the potion, thanked the person in front of him first, and then drank it. The cool taste slid down his mouth, and Ian felt much more comfortable. Thank you very much, Mr. Flamel. Ian stood up and thanked Nicholas Flamel. You're welcome, Ian. Nicholas Flamel waved his hand. Don't call me sir, just call me teacher. Ian changed his words. Okay, teacher. Okay, Nico. Since Ian is here, I'll leave first. Professor Dumbledore said goodbye to the two. I'll leave Ian to you. Don't worry, Albus. Nicholas Flamel patted Ian's shoulder. I will take good care of him. Professor Dumbledore nodded and disappeared. Let's go, Ian. Nicholas Flamel turned around and took Ian to the house. Let's go to lunch first. Parental knew you were coming and cooked. After dinner, I will arrange a place for you to stay. Ian followed Nicholas Flamel step by step and began to look around. It was an ordinary suburban cottage with simple furnishings. It was impossible to tell that a master alchemist over 600 years old lived here. If it wasn't Nicholas Flamel's home, Ian would have thought it was a muggle's house. Are you disappointed? Nicholas Flamel suddenly interrupted Ian's observation. My house doesn't match your imagination? Ian nodded honestly. There's a little bit. I thought your house would be filled with all kinds of alchemical products. Huh, you're not the first person to think so. Nicholas Flamel laughed heartily. But we are just ordinary people, and houses are just used to shelter from the wind and rain. There's no need for those fancy things. Ian nodded thoughtfully. I understand, teacher. Nicholas Flamel patted Ian's shoulder with satisfaction. A young man is teachable. Okay, let's go to eat first and see what delicious food Parental has made. Nicholas Flamel took Ian to the dining room. The table was already filled with a variety of dishes, which looked very appetizing. Parental, Ian is here. Nicholas Flamel shouted to the kitchen. I know, you take Ian to sit down first, and there's a soup that will be ready soon. As the voice fell, an old lady wearing an apron came out with a bowl of soup. Ian quickly stood up and greeted the old lady. Mrs. Flamel, hello, I am Ian Potter. Perenelle placed the soup bowl on the table and looked at Ian with a smile. Hello, Ian. You can call me Perenelle. Albus and I have mentioned you, saying that you are a very talented little wizard. Professor Dumbledore is too kind. Ian scratched his head a little embarrassedly. I still need to learn more from wizards like you and Mr. Flamel. Okay, don't stand. Sit down and eat. Nicholas Flamel invited Ian to sit down. Ian, try Perenelle's cooking. She conquered my stomach with a bowl of soup back then. Ian smiled and agreed, and began to taste the dishes on the table. Ian picked up a piece of chicken closest to him, put it in his mouth and chewed it, then widened his eyes. The chicken was tender and juicy, exuding a faint aroma, and mixed with some taste he couldn't describe, stimulating his taste buds. How is it? Perenelle looked at Ian expectantly. Very delicious. Ian gave a thumbs up. I have never eaten such delicious chicken. Your cooking skills are really unique. Haha, if it's delicious, eat more. Perenelle was praised by Ian and kept picking up food for Ian. She really liked this handsome and sweet-talking little wizard. After a meal, Ian felt that he was so full that he couldn't walk. Okay, Perenelle, Ian just finished his meal and needs to digest it, so don't talk to him. Nicholas Flamel patted Ian on the shoulder. Let's go, Ian. I'll take you to your room. After saying goodbye to Perenelle, Ian followed Nicholas Flamel upstairs. Ian, this is your room. Nicholas Flamel pushed open a door and motioned Ian to go in. I don't know much about your preferences as a child, and I don't know if you will like it. Ian pushed the door open and entered, and what came into view was a warmly decorated room on 4.1 daytime. There were various paintings hanging on the light green walls, and the curtains were also in the same color, which looked very comfortable. A large bed was placed in the center of the room, covered with soft bedding and pillows. Various magic items were neatly placed throughout the room, including an alarm clock that could spit fire dragons, a magic book that could fly, and a feather pen that could write automatically. Ian could be sure that this room had been carefully decorated. I like it very much. Thank you, teacher. Ian turned his head to look at Nicholas Flamel and said sincerely, as long as you like it. Nicholas Flamel smiled and nodded. If there is anything missing in the future, tell me. Okay, if I need anything, I will definitely ask you. Ian smiled. Ian, take a rest first, and we will start the class after you have rested. Nicholas Flamel said, and turned to leave the room. Ian nodded, and after seeing Nicholas Flamel off, he closed the door. He walked to the bed and lay down, slowly closing his eyes. Nicholas Flamel and Perenelle are both easy to get along with, and he should have a good study life here. Chapter 79, The Book of Abraham of the Jews. After an unknown amount of time, Ian, who was sleeping soundly, was awakened by a knock on the door. Ian sat up dazedly and yawned. Who is it? Ian, it's me. Nicholas Flamel's voice sounded outside the door. How did you rest? If you rest well, we will go to class. Ian rubbed his eyes and remembered that he was not at home, but in France, at Nicholas Flamel's home. I have rested well, teacher. Ian quickly got up from the bed, walked over, and opened the door. Sorry to have kept you waiting for so long. It's okay, let's go. Nicholas Flamel smiled and shook his head and took Ian downstairs. The living room downstairs has completely changed under Nicholas Flamel's operation. The originally warm living room has become a small magic classroom, with illustrations of various magic theories hanging on the walls, and various magic books and alchemical products on the table. Ian looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but widen his eyes. This is even better than the room of requirement. You can easily turn your living room into a professional magic classroom. This is the charm of alchemy. Don't stand there, Ian. Come and sit down. Nicholas Flamel called Ian to sit down at the table. Ian sat down obediently, then looked at Nicholas Flamel, waiting for him to speak. Ian, I know you have good grades in Hogwarts, and you have a solid grasp of the theoretical foundation of magic. Nicholas Flamel looked at Ian and spoke slowly, but alchemy cannot be mastered by theory alone. You need to practice, try, and innovate constantly. Ian nodded to show that he understood. He also knew that alchemy is a very practical magic. Only by practicing constantly can you truly master it. Ian, What do you think alchemy is? Tell me what you think. Nicholas Flamel looked at Ian, his eyes revealing some expectations. Ian frowned. He didn't know much about alchemy. The only two alchemy products he had come into contact with were the Philosopher's Stone and the necklace on his neck. I think alchemy is a science that explores the essence of matter and changes the form of matter through magical means. Ian thought for a while and expressed his thoughts. Through research and experiments, alchemists can transform one substance into another, or even create a completely new substance. In simple terms, it is the evolution of various metals. Ian concluded. Nicholas Flamel listened to Ian's answer and showed a satisfied smile on his face. You are right, Ian. Alchemy is indeed a science that explores the essence of matter. However, alchemy is not a simple transformation of matter, nor is it a simple gold making. Nicholas Flamel changed the subject and his face became serious. You know, alchemists pursue medicine, and the ultimate goal is to pursue immortality. Longevity, magic. Ian muttered to himself, with a thoughtful look on his face. Yes, I made the Philosopher's Stone for longevity. Nicholas Flamel nodded. This is the ultimate goal of alchemists and the real charm of alchemy. Ian nodded, not quite understanding, and he felt as if he had touched the door to a new world. Alchemy is very similar to Muggle chemistry, isn't it? Nicholas Flamel said with a smile. Ian looked at Nicholas Flamel in surprise. Do you know chemistry? Of course I know that chemistry and alchemy are actually similar in many ways. Nicholas Flamel said with a smile. It's just that chemistry pays more attention to the properties and laws of change of substances, while alchemy pays more attention to the transformation and creation of substances. However, alchemy involves many magical elements and mysterious powers, which cannot be explained by chemistry. Nicholas Flamel added. Ian nodded and had a deeper understanding of alchemy in his heart. My previous view of alchemy was too one-sided and superficial. There's a book I want to give you, Nicholas Flamel said, picking up a heavy book from the table. I can become an alchemist, all thanks to it. The Book of Abraham of the Jews. This is a large, ancient book. The cover is not made of paper. It feels like a soft bark, and the surface is tightly wrapped with thick brass and exquisitely bordered. Ian took the book and felt it sink in his hand. He almost lost his grip. Ian opened the book. The pages were in groups of 7, with a total of 21 pages. On the first 7 pages, there was a cane with 2 snakes wrapped around it, 10 of which were devouring the other 10. On the second 7 pages, which was page 14, there was a cross, but it was not Jesus who was nailed to the cross, but a snake. On the third 7 pages, which was page 21, there were several clear springs emerging from a desert, and many snakes emerged from the springs. Abraham the Jew, prince, priest, master of astrologers, wise saints dedicated to the Jewish people scattered in Gaul. Ian murmured a few lines written on the first page. These strange words were re-annotated by Nicholas Flamel and translated into French in the intervals. Then there are some fiercely worded spells, in which the word Maranatha appears from time to time. The spell roughly means that except for the priests and the scribes responsible for copying, anyone who reads the book will be cursed terribly. Nicholas Flamel is more than 600 years old, but he still remembers the contents of the book clearly. In the blanks of the pages, there are the operating methods of metal evolution and the meaning of the questions that need to be reviewed. Ian looked carefully and found that it was indeed the case. The blanks of the pages were filled with various strange symbols and patterns, and there was some text that he couldn't understand for explanation. Fortunately, Nicholas Flamel made comments on it. Do you understand what you see? Nicholas Flamel smiled. Teacher, in this first picture, the snake swallowed another snake. Does it refer to the fusion of matter? Ian said carefully. Nicholas Flamel's eyes lit up. Good, go on. Encouraged, Ian became bolder. The second picture, the snake is nailed to the cross, which should represent the decomposition and corruption of matter, or the sacrifice and transformation in the alchemical process. Nicholas Flamel's smile became bigger and bigger. The last page, the snake emerges from the spring, which represents the birth of new matter, that is, the completion of alchemy. Ian said his guess. That's right. That's right. Nicholas Flamel patted the table excitedly. You really have a talent for learning alchemy, Ian. Ian touched his nose embarrassedly. I also guessed based on the pictures in the book. I don't know if it's correct. It's not easy for you to see these in such a short time. Nicholas Flamel did not hesitate to praise. Nicholas Flamel turned to the 4th and 5th pages, and Ian then noticed that in addition to the 3 pictures just now, there were also 4 pictures on the 4th and 5th pages. The first picture on the 4th page showed 2 people, one wearing a hat and holding a double snake staff in his hand. The knowledgeable Ian quickly recognized that this was Hermes in Greek mythology and Mercury in Roman mythology. He was waving a snake staff and posing for a fight, and he was fighting the first winged old man who was flying in the air with an hourglass on his head and holding a knife to cut off Hermes' feet. These 200 old men are the god of agriculture, who symbolizes lead, and Mercury on the ground symbolizes Mercury, and the wings on his head represent volatilization, referring to the use of lead to remove the volatilization of Mercury. Nicholas Flamel pointed to the picture and gestured. Ian looked at the second picture. What do you think of this picture? The second picture on the 4th page is colorful. On the top of a mountain, there is a beautiful flower. The flower stem is blue. The flowers are white and red, and the leaves are golden. Below the picture is a griffin and a dragon building a nest on the hillside. Ian obviously understood the meaning of this abstract picture. He pondered and said, the flowers of different colors on the mountain represent the use of different substances, and the only golden leaf represents the final generation of substances. Nicholas Flamel nodded, turned to the 5th page, and motioned Ian to continue. This little wizard surprised him so much. This is the apprentice he has been looking for. The first picture on the 5th page is a garden with a strange oak tree planted in the center of the garden. The reason why it is strange is that it is hollow, and a rose tree full of roses grows in the hollow part. There is also a fountain under the tree. The spring water sprayed is white liquid. The white spring water flows to the distance. A group of blind people squatted on the ground and groped everywhere, but they couldn't see or touch anything. The garden symbolizes the laboratory. The hollow tree refers to the flask, and the blind people are metaphorically those fake alchemists or those who are still looking for raw materials. In fact, the real raw materials are right beside them, but they often slip away without their awareness. Ian's interpretation became more and more fluent, and he gradually understood the meaning behind the obscure patterns in the book. Well said, Ian. Nicholas Flamel did not hide his admiration. Then take a look at the last picture. Chapter 80, The Price of the Elixir of Life. The second picture on the 5th page shows a king holding a big knife and ordering soldiers to kill many babies. The mothers of the babies kneeled in front of them and begged bitterly. There were some containers similar to buckets and crucibles next to them. The blood of the babies was collected in them, and the sun and the moon were bathing in the blood. Ian shook his head. I don't understand this picture, teacher. It doesn't matter. Ian, the meaning of this picture is indeed more complicated. Nicholas Flamel said slowly. If you're familiar with the Bible, you'll probably know that this is the scene of King Herod slaughtering the Holy Child. The blood of the Holy Child is a kind of nitric acid, and the sun and the moon represent gold and silver respectively. These 2 immiscible substances must be fused with nitric acid to produce the final Philosopher's Stone. Ian's eyes lit up when he heard it. Philosopher's Stone? Yes, Ian, the Philosopher's Stone. The raw material for making the elixir of life. Nicholas Flamel's face showed fascination. Unfortunately, it can't be made now. Why? Teacher, Ian asked knowingly. Because the birth of the elixir of life requires a lot of vitality to support it. Nicholas Flamel's face became solemn. Such a magic potion is against nature and is not allowed. Life force. Ian looked at Nicholas Flamel in surprise. Teacher, then you... Nicholas Flamel understood what Ian had not said. He smiled and stroked the back of the book. Ian, this book took me 21 years to decipher. On the way to decipher this book, I met a Jewish researcher named Master Kinchis who lived in Lyon. Nicholas Flamel seemed to be pulled into his memories all of a sudden. Kinchis recognized that this Jew, Abraham, was one of the earliest scholars of the Jewish mystical system Kabbalah. On the second page of this book, Abraham advised his people to stay away from evil, especially idolatry. He called on them to wait for the coming of the Messiah with pious patience, because the Messiah will defeat all the secular kings in the world, come with the glory of heaven, and bless his people until eternity. Page 3. Abraham went on to say that he would teach the enslaved tribesmen how to create wealth to help them cope with the heavy taxes imposed on them by the Roman emperors. Turning stones into gold is not the greatest use of the Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas Flamel smiled. I know that when I come into contact with ancient and mysterious knowledge, this knowledge may bring destruction, and the price is not small. But I still did it. Regardless of Perrinel's dissuasion, I resolutely did what the book said. I took after all the costs. I finally succeeded. January 17th, 1382. That was a Monday. Near noon, I successfully transformed half a pound of mercury into pure silver, and Perrinel witnessed this moment. Nicholas Flamel fell into memories, with a dreamy look on his face. I personally tested its texture and later sent it to other authoritative appraisals, and finally confirmed that it was purer than the silver produced in natural silver mines. At 5 p.m. on April 25th, 1382, in the same room, I made a red philosopher's stone and used it to make gold that was purer than ordinary gold. It looks better, feels softer, and is more ductile. Nicholas Flamel looked at Ian. Do you know what I was thinking at the time? Ian shook his head. I don't know, teacher. I thought at the time, the red philosopher's stone, I succeeded. I strangled fate by the throat. I became immortal. From today on, every alchemist will remember my name. Nicholas Flamel's face showed a fanatical look, but Ian, I didn't get immortality. It was just longevity. I did get a lifespan of more than 600 years through the Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas Flamel's fanaticism faded, replaced by an unspeakable fatigue. Taking the elixir of life can indeed make me immortal, but it requires taking it for a long time. And as we get older, our bodies become weaker. Remember what I just said about the elixir of life requiring vitality? Ian nodded under Nicholas Flamel's gaze. In the 14th century, the plague was rampant. More than 25 million people died in Europe because of the Black Death, equivalent to 1/3 of the total population of Europe. Nicholas Flamel lowered his eyes. Making the elixir of life requires a lot of vitality, the vitality of human beings. It can be said that I deprived those people of their last few days of life. Ian's pupils shrank suddenly, and he looked at Nicholas Flamel as if he had just met Nicholas Flamel for the first time. Shocked, right, Ian? Nicholas Flamel smiled bitterly. But this is the biggest secret of the elixir of life. Now, do you understand why the elixir of life can no longer be made? Nicholas Flamel looked at Ian. Ian didn't say anything, just nodded silently. I understand, teacher, but you still have the last piece of the Philosopher's Stone. Why don't you use it to make the elixir of life and continue to live? Because I'm thinking, is this kind of longevity really what I want? Nicholas Flamel shook his head with a wry smile. Watching the people close to me leave one by one, watching the world change, is this kind of longevity really right? More than 600 years, Ian. Nicholas Flamel looked at Ian. More than 600 years. I have lived enough, and dash. Nicholas Flamel touched his chest. Perrinel and I are very tired. Ian looked at Nicholas Flamel's hunched back and suddenly realized that the alchemist in front of him, who was famous in Europe, was just an old man who had lived for more than 600 years. Even with the help of the Philosopher's Stone, his and Perrinel's bodies have become old under the erosion of time. Ian, I give this book to you, hoping that you, Dali, can inherit my legacy and let it continue. Nicholas Flamel solemnly handed the book in his hand to Ian. Ian took a deep breath and respectfully took the book in Nicholas Flamel's hand with both hands. I will, teacher. Also, even if you make the Philosopher's Stone one day, don't make the elixir of life. Nicholas Flamel's expression suddenly became serious. That is not a field that humans should touch. Ian looked at Nicholas Flamel's serious expression and nodded solemnly. I understand, teacher. Nicholas Flamel patted Ian's shoulder with relief. Ian, remember, the elixir of life is just a lie. The true meaning of life is not the length, but how you spend it. Ian deeply engraved Nicholas Flamel's words in his heart. He looked at the book in his hand and felt that his hands were heavy. This is not only a book, but also a legacy. Chapter 81. Dobby the Elf is coming in a room. Ian fell into deep thought over a notebook thicker than the Jewish Book of Abraham. This notebook is the alchemical runes summarized by Nicholas Flamel based on the Jewish Book of Abraham. Since that day, Ian officially became Nicholas Flamel's disciple and followed him to learn alchemy. Nicholas Flamel also gave Ian his lifelong research efforts. The first task is to learn all the runes in this notebook. Ian looked at the dense runes on the notebook and felt overwhelmed. These runes are not only complex, but also obscure. Even with Nicholas Flamel's explanation, Ian still found it very difficult to understand. Moreover, alchemy is different from other magic. As long as other magic is understood, as long as the structure of magic is understood and the principles of magic are known, no matter how complex the magic is, it can be easily learned and released. But alchemy is not like that. Alchemy requires long-term practice and needs to carve runes again and again until muscle memory is formed to ensure that there will be no mistakes when making alchemical props. Once an error is made in the process of making alchemical tools, not only will the alchemical tools fail to be made, but also an explosion may occur in serious cases. Therefore, Ian could only carve runes over and over again and practice alchemy. Under Nicholas Flamel's teaching, Ian made rapid progress. He not only mastered low-level alchemical runes, but also learned some intermediate alchemical runes. Seeing Ian's progress, Nicholas Flamel was very pleased. He knew that he had not made a mistake. Ian had a high talent in alchemy, and his future achievements in alchemy would not be lower than his. Time passed quietly as Ian learned alchemy. Ian, come to dinner. Okay, Grandma Perenelle. Ian walked downstairs holding a notebook. Because Ian was really handsome, cute, well-behaved, and sensible, and Perenelle and Nicholas Flamel had no offspring, they treated Ian as their grandson and asked Ian to call them Grandpa and Grandma directly. After Ian went downstairs, he carefully placed his notebook on the desk before going to the kitchen to wash his hands and eat. At the table, Perenelle kept picking up dishes for Ian, asking him to eat more. The dishes in Ian's bowl were piled up like a hill. Ian, eat more, you look so thin. Perenelle said distressedly, don't be so anxious about studying. It's not good to forget about food and sleep, just like your grandfather Nico used to do. I don't want you to be like him and not cherish your body. I know, Perenelle is your grandmother. Grandma doesn't want to control you. She just wants to care about you. Perenelle looked at Ian's well-behaved appearance and touched his head. Don't become an alchemist madman like Nico. Ahem. Nico Flamel coughed twice in embarrassment. I'm right. You're a crazy alchemist. Once you didn't eat for 3 days and you're not afraid of dying from studying. Perenelle rolled his eyes at Nicholas Flamel, not giving him any face. Nicholas Flamel smiled awkwardly and didn't refute Perenelle's words. He is indeed a crazy alchemist. For alchemy, he can forget about sleep and food and ignore his own body. But it is also because of his madness that he can achieve such a high achievement in alchemy. But now, he cares more about the time with Perenelle. As for alchemy, it has long been ranked behind Perenelle. Perenelle also understands this, so she just complained a few words, but she was not really angry. Ian, you go home for your birthday tomorrow, and I will give you a month of rest. Nicholas Flamel suddenly said, don't think about alchemy for this month, and come to study next summer vacation. Okay, it's Grandpa. Ian nodded and agreed. He had indeed not been home for a long time. Not only did he miss Hermione, but Hermione also missed him. The next morning, Nicholas Flamel used the door key to send Ian back to Manscott. The door key is a ring. On the first day of Ian and Nico's study, Nicholas Flamel gave Ian the door key and taught him how to use it to facilitate Ian's return. Ian stood at the door of his house, looking at the familiar scene, and a sense of intimacy surged in his heart. He took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. I'm coming. Accompanied by a familiar voice, the door was opened, and Hermione appeared at the door. Ian. Seeing Ian at the door, Hermione's face suddenly showed a surprise. Hermione. Ian also smiled, opened his arms, and hugged Hermione tightly in his arms. "You are finally back. I missed you so much." Hermione buried her head in Ian's arms, hugged Ian's waist with both hands, and her voice was a little choked. "I miss you too, Hermione." Ian patted Hermione's back gently and said softly. The two hugged each other tightly, as if they wanted to merge each other into their bodies. It was unknown how long it took before the two slowly separated, but their hands were still tightly holding each other's hands, as if they would disappear if they let go. "Okay, let's go in first." Ian took Hermione's hand and walked into the house. The Grangers were very happy to see Ian come back, especially Mrs. Granger, who looked Ian up and down and kept saying that he had lost weight. Harry was also very happy. He thought Ian would spend the summer vacation at Nicholas Flamel's place and would not come back. "Ian, you're not leaving today?" Hermione looked at Ian, her face full of expectation. "No." Ian smiled and shook his head. "Grandpa Nico gave me a month's leave and asked me to come back for my birthday." "That's great." Hearing Ian say this, Hermione smiled immediately. "So how are you doing with alchemy?" Harry asked curiously. "Not bad. Grandpa Nico said I'm making rapid progress." Speaking of alchemy, Ian couldn't help but show confidence on his face. "Ian, your birthday is tomorrow. What gift do you want?" Mrs. Granger looked at Ian and asked softly. Harry chose a t-shirt. "What about you? What do you want?" "I don't want anything. I want to eat the mango pudding you made." Ian said with a smile. "Okay, I'll make it for you tomorrow." Mrs. Granger agreed with a smile. "But you have to choose another gift. Mango pudding is not a birthday gift." "Then I want a t-shirt too, Aunt Granger." Ian thought for a moment and said, "Just the same as Harry's." "Okay." Mrs. Granger smiled and nodded. "Then I'll buy you two a t-shirt tomorrow." "Ian, Harry, you two have birthdays tomorrow. Do you want to invite friends to your house for a party?" Mr. Granger looked at Ian and asked with a smile, "Is it okay?" Harry looked at Mr. Granger expectantly. "Of course." Mr. Granger smiled and nodded, "but you have to confirm the number of people first and then tell me so I can prepare enough food. I'm going to ask Ronald and the others." Harry said immediately. "Then go ahead, Harry," Mr. Granger said with a smile. "Ian, you just came back. Take a rest first and wait for Harry to come back, and then you can confirm the party together." "Okay, Uncle Granger." Ian nodded in agreement. Harry ran into the room excitedly and wrote to Ronald and the others. For some reason, he and Hermione had not received any letters or replies from their friends for a month. Now, they could only let Ian use his golden sculpture Themis to deliver the letters. Ian sat on the sofa and chatted with the Grangers. He told the Grangers about his daily life of learning alchemy from Nicholas Flamel, and the Grangers were amazed. Although they knew that Ian was very talented in alchemy and had made considerable achievements, they were still shocked to hear Ian talk about it in person. Not long after, Harry ran out of the room with several letters in his hands and his face full of excitement. "Ian, I have finished writing to Ronald and the others. You can let Themis deliver the letters." Harry looked at Ian and said anxiously, "Huh?" Ian was a little surprised. "Where's Hedwig? Why don't you use Hedwig to deliver the letter? We haven't received any letters or replies in this month." Hermione frowned. "I suspect someone doesn't want us to contact our friends, so they intercepted our letters. We wrote many letters to Ronald and others this month and sent them out by owl, but there was no reply." Harry added, "And whether it's Ronald, Draco, or Cassandra, they didn't reply, which is very abnormal." Hermione nodded. "We can only receive your reply in letters. Maybe because we live together, they were not intercepted. It's indeed a little unusual." Ian nodded slightly, his face becoming serious. "Now that you mention that, I remembered that, except for you two, no one else has written to me." Ian has been in France for too long, and just now he remembered that the second grade is about to start. Judging from this situation, it is probably that Dobby, the elf of the Malfoy family, has begun to intercept Harry's letters and doesn't want them to return to Hogwarts. Chapter 82. Dobby the Elf. It seems that someone does not want us to contact our friends. Ian pondered, "But it doesn't matter, I'm back now. They can't intercept our letters anymore." "Ian, what are you going to do?" Hermione looked at Ian curiously. "I'll ask Themis to deliver the letter in the evening." Ian smiled slightly. I want to see who is so bold as to intercept our letters. Okay. Harry immediately handed the letter to Ian. We will know who is behind it tonight. No problem. Ian took the letter and put it in his pocket. Okay, let's not talk about this for now. Let's think about how to celebrate the birthday tomorrow. Hearing what Ian said, Harry and Hermione immediately put the letter behind their minds and began to discuss tomorrow's birthday party with great interest. They discussed which friends to invite, what food and games to prepare, and the atmosphere was very lively. Granger and his wife also joined the discussion, giving Ian and his family advice, and the family was having a great time. As night fell, Ian and the other two stood in front of the window, looking at the dark night sky, and reached out of his pocket to take out the letter Harry gave him. He whispered, Themis. Dash, accompanied by the sound of flapping wings. A huge golden eagle appeared outside the window, its head close to the window, and rubbed Ian's cheek affectionately. Help me deliver these letters to Cassandra, Draco, and others. Ian stroked the feathers of the golden eagle and said softly. Themis chirped softly and gently nudged the letter in Ian's hand with her head, indicating that she understood. Is this really okay? Hermione was a little worried. We don't know who is intercepting our letters. What if Themis is in danger? Don't worry, Hermione. Ian smiled confidently. Themis is a golden eagle, one of the most powerful birds of prey in this sky, and there are not many people who can threaten it. Harry shook the flying broom in his hand. Yes, we will follow Themis later to see who is doing it. Okay. Hermione was relieved when she heard that. Ian tied the letter to Themis's leg and patted its head gently. Go. Themis, deliver the letter to Cassandra and the others. With another soft cry, Themis flapped its wings and flew high, turning into a golden light and disappearing into the sky. Ian and the other two immediately rode on the flying brooms, followed Themis, and chased after her. Themis was very fast, but Ian and the other two rode the Nimbus 2000, which was also not slow. Ian. Hermione sat behind Ian, hugged his waist, and whispered, Who do you think is intercepting our letters? I don't know. Ian shook his head slightly, but I think we will have the answer soon. Ian and the other two followed Themis not far away, passed through the city, flew for a while, and came to a remote suburb. At this moment, something strange happened. A small figure suddenly rushed out and tried to catch Themis. He had 2 big ears like a bat and a pair of protruding green eyes as big as tennis balls. That was Dobby, the elf of the Malfoy family. Ian frowned slightly, watching Dobby trying to catch Themis again and again, but Themis easily dodged him. What is that? Hermione pulled Ian's sleeve tightly. His nose looks like Pinocchio in the fairy tale book. He is a house elf. Harry looked surprised, but is he wearing a pillowcase? Harry noticed that the elf was wearing an old pillowcase with several holes on the arms and legs. It's no wonder Harry was surprised. He had seen house elves before, but the house elf of the Potter family, Lombard, was not like the one in front of him. Lombard always wore human clothes that were a few sizes smaller, and never came out wearing dirty old pillowcases like this elf. It seems that our letters were intercepted by him. Ian frowned slightly, watching Dobby trying to catch Themis again and again. He whispered to Harry and Hermione, let's catch him and ask him what's going on. As he said that, Ian took Hermione and rode on a flying broom and rushed towards Dobby. Dobby tried to catch Themis again and again, but failed again and again. He was very anxious. Suddenly, he saw Ian rushing towards him and panicked. Whose elf are you? Ian looked at Dobby and asked in a deep voice, Why do you want to intercept our letters? Dobby can't say. Dobby screamed and turned around and ran away. Petrification. Ian drew out his wand and pointed it at Dobby. A white light shot out. Dobby was petrified immediately, and the whole elf was fixed in place, maintaining the posture of running away, unable to move. Ian, you are too strict, Harry exclaimed. It's nothing. Ian shook his head slightly, looking at the petrified Dobby. Let's take him back first. As he spoke, Ian picked up his wand, conjured up a large net, put Dobby in it, and then carried the net, Harry and Hermione, and turned back to the Granger family's house. Back in the room, Ian poured Dobby out of the net, and then lifted the petrification spell on him. Dobby regained his ability to move and immediately jumped up from the ground, trying to escape, but Ian pointed his wand at him and had to stand still. Don't try to run. Ian looked at Dobby and said in a deep voice, "If you don't tell us why you intercepted our letters, we will hand you over to the Ministry of Magic." Dobby was frightened and turned pale when he heard this, and shook his head repeatedly. "No, don't hand me over to the Ministry of Magic. Dobby didn't do anything bad. Dobby is for." "Then tell us why you intercepted our letters." Ian looked at Dobby and asked in a deep voice. Dobby hesitated, looked at Ian and Harry carefully, and quickly lowered his head. "Dobby wants to protect the two Mr. Potters," Dobby whispered. Dobby had hoped that if Ian Potter and Harry Potter thought their friends had forgotten them, the two Mr. Potters might not want to go back to school, gentlemen. "What? Why did you stop the two of us from going back to school? You even blocked the letters our friends sent us." Harry was so angry when he heard Dobby's words, but Ian grabbed him. "Don't get excited, Harry." Ian looked at Dobby and asked knowingly, "Dobby, what happened to Hogwarts? Why can't Harry and I go back?" "Dobby can't let Harry Potter and Ian Potter return to Hogwarts. There is a conspiracy because something terrible will happen in Hogwarts this year." Dobby lowered his voice and suddenly trembled all over. "Dobby has known about this for several months, sir. The two Mr. Potters can't take risks." "You are too important, sir," Dobby screamed. "So, Dobby repeatedly begs the two gentlemen not to go back. Please, gentlemen, it's too dangerous, please." Terrible things. Harry and Ian looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Hermione held Ian's hand even tighter, with a heart full of worry. Ian was pretending, but Harry was really surprised, so he asked, "Dobby, what will happen?" "Dobby can't say." Dobby screamed, shaking all over. "Dobby can't say, sir. Dobby must not say." Dobby choked funny, and then banged his head against the wall frantically. "What are you doing? Stop it, Dobby!" Hermione screamed in fear and quickly grabbed his arm to stop him from hurting himself. "Dobby, calm down, don't do this." The kind Harry also said quickly, "Stop it, don't hurt yourself." Also an elf, Harry had never seen Lombard hurt himself so much. Unlike Hermione and the others, Ian grabbed Dobby neatly and said sternly, "Stop, Dobby." Dobby stopped moving immediately and looked at Ian timidly. "Okay, sit down first." Hermione pointed to the sofa in the room and tried to be gentle in her tone. Unexpectedly, the elf burst into tears, startling Hermione and Harry. He cried loudly. "Sit down." Dobby sobbed, "Never, never." Hermione almost pushed Dobby to the sofa, where Dobby sat and hiccuped, looking like an ugly big doll. "Thank you, kind Miss Hermione." The elf choked. "No wizard has ever let Dobby sit down. Like an equal dash, don't cry, Dobby." Hermione begged. "Do you know what terrible things are going to happen at Hogwarts? Have you heard any news? Why can't you tell us?" The elf choked, trembling all over, trying to stop crying, but still hiccuping from time to time. "Dobby is at his master's house." Dobby stopped talking and hit his head hard. "Bad Dobby. Bad Dobby. Don't say bad things about your master." "Your master's house?" Hermione was a little surprised. "You have a master?" "The wizard family that Dobby serves, Miss Hermione. Dobby is a house elf. He must always serve one family." Ian clenched his fist and coughed lightly. "Hermione, the old Potter house actually is house elves." "What? You never told me." Hermione pursed her lips and looked at Ian. Ian touched his nose. Of course he didn't dare to say it. He was afraid that Hermione would dismiss the house elves at home on the spot. After all, Hermione couldn't bear to see the house elves suffer. She was very kind but also very simple. To be honest, as a vested interest, Ian didn't want to free the house elves at home. That would make his life less convenient in the future. Hermione didn't care too much. She turned her head to look at Dobby, and her tone softened a little. "Dobby, do your masters know that you are here?" "Oh no, Miss Hermione, they don't know. Dobby will punish himself most severely because he came to see the two Mr. Potters. Dobby will lock his ears in the oven door. If they find out." "Miss Hermione," Dobby said with sobs. Harry asked curiously, "But if you lock your ears in the oven door, won't they find out?" Dobby guesses not, sir. Dobby always punishes himself for something, sir. They let Dobby do this. Sir Dobby shook his head his ears popping, and said they don't care, as long as they don't make too much noise at home. Dobby sometimes rolls down the steep stairs, sir, or burns his hand with the iron. How could they do that to you? This is too much, too cruel. Hermione said in shock, why don't you leave? Don't run away. Dobby turned pale with fear when he heard this, and said, the house elves must be released by the master. But the master will never let Dobby go. Dobby will work in the master's house until he dies. One Hermione and Harry were stunned. Ian, however, was calm in his heart. After all, he had known about she for a long time. Chapter 83. Poaching right under your nose. Dobby, tell us quickly, what will happen in Hogwarts? Ian looked at Dobby and frowned, so that we can consider whether to go back or not, right? Dobby was immediately entangled when he heard Ian's words. He couldn't say it, but he wanted to protect the two Mr. Potters. Hermione looked at Ian disapprovingly. Ian, don't be so harsh on Dobby. Okay. Ian took a deep breath, looked at Dobby, and tried to make his tone sound gentle. Dobby, we want to go back to Hogwarts. You have to tell us what terrible things will happen in Hogwarts so that we can avoid it, right? Dobby looked even more entangled. He scratched his hands and whispered, Dobby can't say, sir. Dobby really can't say? Ian spread his hands at Hermione, meaning see, you still have to be tough. Gentleness is useless. Hermione glared at Ian, then turned to look at Dobby and said gently, Dobby, we're your friends, right? You don't want us to be in danger, right? Friends? Miss Hermione considers Dobby a dirty and ugly elf as her friend. Dobby raised his head in surprise, his eyes full of tears. Never has a wizard considered Dobby a friend. Miss Hermione and the two Mr. Potters are all very good wizards. As he spoke, Dobby cried again, and cried even louder. Ian rubbed his temples with a headache. Dobby, if you don't tell us what happened in Hogwarts, then you return the letters written by our friends to us. The letters are here with Dobby, sir, the elf said, and he pulled out a thick stack of letters from the pillowcase he was wearing. Ian recognized Cassandra's neat handwriting, Draco's powerful handwriting, Ronald's flying and flamboyant handwriting, and even a kind of sloppy handwriting, which seemed to be written by Hagrid. Ian counted and found that there were more than 50 letters in total, more than 30 of which were his. It seems that Dobby intercepted a lot of letters. You actually intercepted so many. Ian's eyebrows jumped. It's no wonder he wanted to get angry, because he saw Isabella's letter among the pile of letters. That was the little which he wanted to conquer, but hadn't conquered yet. Calculating the time, it's been a month, and the little girl's favor towards him must have dropped to the lowest point. Dobby didn't mean it, sir. Dobby said in panic. Dobby just doesn't want Mr. Potter to return to Hogwarts. Dobby wants to protect Mr. Ian Potter. Dobby adjusted his bat-shaped ears into a cup shape, which means he was accepting a very severe punishment. Okay, we're back to the same place again. Ian handed the letter to Hermione and the others. Cassandra and the other two wrote several letters, as well as Hagrid's and the Weasley twins. And Isabella. Hermione squinted at Ian. If I remember correctly, Isabella is my roommate, right? She only sent me one letter, but she sent you so many. What did you two get so close? The implication is, when did you two hook up behind my back? Hermione was furious. Unlike Cassandra and Ian, who were both in Slytherin, she was close to them first. Isabella Swan is her roommate. This is simply poaching right under her nose. Hermione, yes. Ian laughed dryly. We just meet occasionally and say a few words. Under Hermione's gaze, Ian's voice became smaller and smaller, and finally shut up. Hermione took a deep breath and decided to deal with Ian later. What's more important now is, Dobby, listen to me. Hermione squatted down and said to Dobby softly, what I say next, you just need to nod or shake your head, okay? Dobby nodded. Something terrible will happen at Hogwarts. This thing may endanger the lives of Ian and Harry, right? Dobby hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly. Hermione's pupils shrank when she saw this scene. It's okay, Hermione, don't worry. Ian comforted. Don't forget, we have already experienced a life-threatening situation in our first year. We're still standing here now, which means we will still be able to overcome the danger. Harry also said, yes, Hermione, don't worry. No matter what happens, we will be together. Hermione took a deep breath and continued to ask, "Then this terrible thing, is it related to Voldemort?" As soon as the three words Voldemort came out, Dobby's body trembled, as if he was very scared, but he still shook his head. "Not Voldemort." Hermione obviously didn't expect to get this answer. She was stunned for a moment. Will there be anything more terrible than Voldemort? Ian also looked confused, but his inner drama was extremely rich in the world of Harry Potter. Of course, nothing is more terrible than Voldemort. But it was obvious that Dobby Song knew that Lucius Malfoy wanted to use the diary to harm them. But he didn't know that the diary was Voldemort's Horcrux, and that a piece of Voldemort's soul was hidden in it. "Dobby, I have one last question." Hermione looked at Dobby and said, "Is there someone who made Hogwarts dangerous? Is that person your master?" Dobby trembled all over. He looked up at Hermione. His eyes were full of tears, full of entanglement and struggle. Seeing Dobby like this, Hermione still had something to understand. "Okay, Dobby, I understand." Hermione stood up and turned to wink at Ian and Harry. "Dobby, you can go back now." Ian added, "But you can't intercept our letters anymore." Dobby nodded honestly and operated away. Hermione looked at the place where Dobby disappeared, thinking, "Now, as long as we find out who Dobby's owner is, we can know who want to harm you and Harry." Hermione said, "The wizard families who can own house elves are either rich or noble." Ian shrugged. "There are a total of 28 pureblood families. Excluding the Weasley family, there are still 27 families left. It should be very fragrant. Excluding Draco's family, there are a total of 26 families left." Harry continued. Ian glanced at Harry speechlessly. This guy and Draco are really in love. He ruled out the correct answer right away. "Then we will check these 25 families one by one. We will always find some clues." Hermione said confidently, "P.S. You've got it all wrong." But Ian didn't plan to correct them. If they knew now that it was Lucius who was behind it, how could the plot go on? He said that he would destroy at least one Horcrux a year. "Let's go back to sleep first." Without intercepting the letters, Themis will deliver the invitation letter to Cassandra and the others safely. Ian turned Hermione's body. "Come on, I'll take you back to your room." Hermione wanted to struggle. She wanted to read a book for a while before going to sleep. But Ian coaxed her back with a sentence, "I want to whisper to you." Harry looked at the backs of the two people leaving and shook his head silently. If they were not lovers, they would just be bored. Chapter 84. First kiss is one of the birthday gifts in the room. Ian looked at Hermione's eyes seriously, and his eyes gradually moved down to her lips. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Hermione shyly turned her head away, her heart pounding. "I was thinking." Ian dragged out his voice, whetting Hermione's appetite, and then slowly spoke. "Tomorrow is my birthday. I was wondering what birthday present you would give me." Hermione's expression changed from expectation to speechless. "Is that what you want to say? What else?" Ian looked innocent. "What do you think I'm going to say?" Hermione. She thought Ian wanted to say, "I was wondering if I could kiss you." Hermione took a deep breath and decided not to pay attention to Ian. The BD. Hermione. Ian hugged Hermione from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder, and whispered, "What are you going to give me? You like it? I'll give you a special gift." Hermione's cheeks flushed slightly, and she whispered, "Then I'll wait and see." Ian chuckled and let go of Hermione. "Okay, it's getting late. Go to bed early," Ian said, and turned to leave. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he would not be able to help but do something inappropriate for children, but they were still young. Hermione looked at the closed door and gently touched her lips. Ian seemed to want to kiss her just now. If he behaved well, she would give him an extra gift tomorrow. Hermione lay on the bed, thinking this in her heart, and gradually fell asleep. The next day, July 31st, was Ian and Harry's birthday. Early in the morning, Ian just came out of the room and met Harry. "Ian, happy birthday," Harry said, handing Ian a gift box. "Harry, happy birthday." Ian also took out his birthday gift for Harry from behind. The two brothers smiled at each other and thanked each other. "Where's Hermione? Hasn't she woken up yet?" Harry asked as he unwrapped the gift Ian had given him. "Well, she slept too late last night, so let her sleep a little longer," Ian said, opening the gift Harry had given him, which was a pair of the latest brand name shoes. "Wow, what is this? A bottle of potion?" Harry also unwrapped the gift Ian had given him, and inside was a crystal bottle filled with liquid that looked like the starry sky. Extremely beautiful. This is what I mixed, and I named it Good Score. It can help you get into a good state during the exam and perform exceptionally well. Ian said with a smile, I mixed it for the entire holiday. Harry's eyes widened, with a look of surprise on his face. Really? That's great. He no longer had to worry about passing the Old Bats potion class. Harry knew Ian's level of potion mixing, and Ian's products must be top-notch. This is really the second best birthday gift I've ever received. The first was the little green snake Seraphina you gave me. Harry hugged Ian excitedly. Okay. Harry, my arms belong to the beautiful little witch. Ian pushed Harry away with disdain. Hurry up and have breakfast. I guess Tinner will receive a reply from Cassandra and the others. Harry nodded and went to the living room with Ian. Aunt Granger, what are you eating today? Ian sniffed the aroma in the air and raised the corners of his mouth. Grilled sausages and fried eggs? Your nose is really sharp. Mrs. Granger came out with a large plate of grilled sausages and fried eggs. Happy birthday, Ian, Harry. Thank you, Aunt Granger. Ian took the plate and put it on the dining table. Harry sat at the dining table and picked up a grilled sausage with a fork. Thank you, Aunt Granger. Mom, Ian, Harry, good morning. Hermione came down from upstairs. She looked a little sleepy, but she still forced herself to wish Ian a happy birthday. Hermione, you got up late, and we are almost done with breakfast. Harry chewed the grilled sausage and said vaguely, It's late? Hermione, here is breakfast for you. Ian handed her the plate that belonged to Hermione, which also contained grilled sausages and fried eggs. Hermione took the plate and thanked Ian in a low voice. She secretly looked at Ian, thinking about the decision last night, and a faint blush appeared on her face. Hermione, why is your face so red? Do you have a fever? Harry looked at Hermione with a worried look. No, don't talk nonsense. Hermione glared at Harry, then secretly glanced at Ian and found that Ian was also looking at her, and her face suddenly became redder. Hermione, what's wrong with you? Ian was also confused. No, nothing, just a little hot. Hermione stammered, then lowered her head and quickly ate the breakfast on the plate. Ian and Harry looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Why is Hermione so strange today? After breakfast, Ian and Harry sat on the sofa, doing their holiday homework, while Hermione held the history of magic that Ian gave her and sat next to Ian to read it. Ian did his homework very seriously, but Hermione was a little absent-minded and glanced at Ian from time to time. Ian, come with me. Hermione suddenly stood up and said to Ian, Oh, okay. Ian looked up in confusion and followed Hermione to her room. Hermione, you asked me to come in because... Ian was kissed by Hermione before he could finish his words. Ian's eyes widened, looking at Hermione in disbelief. Hermione actually took the initiative to kiss him, and on the lips, foreigners are really precocious. Hermione closed her eyes. Her hands tightly grasped Ian's robe. Her face was red as if it was dripping blood. She finally plucked up the courage to implement the decision made last night. Ian came back to his senses, put his arms around Hermione's waist, and kissed her back gently. After the kiss, Hermione wrapped around Ian like an octopus, buried her head in Ian's arms, and said in a voice as thin as a mosquito, Ian, this is my first kiss, one of my birthday gifts for you. Ian felt a bang, and his mind went blank. What did Hermione say just now? The first kiss was one of his birthday gifts? Wait, one of them? In other words, there are other birthday gifts? Ian lowered his head, looked at Hermione in his arms, and said in a hoarse voice, Hermione, this is the best birthday gift I have ever received. If the little witch gave herself to him in the future, then this best birthday gift would have to be changed. Hermione's face turned redder, and she muttered something in a low voice, which Ian could not hear clearly. Hermione, what did you say? Ian lowered his head, leaned close to Hermione's ear, and asked softly. Nothing. Hermione raised her voice, raised her head from Ian's arms, and looked at him with wet eyes. It's time to go out. Otherwise, Harry will be suspicious. As she said that, Hermione got off Ian's body and tidied up her messy clothes and hair. Ian also tidied up his clothes, then took Hermione's hand and opened the door. Chapter 85. Hermione is the most special little witch. Ian lowered his head, looked at Hermione.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.